He opened the door and found her in bed with the 3 bullies.
At that moment, he noticed Aya in front of him, levitating.
Go, devour every single villager. Don't leave anyone. Screams erupted across the village square. Standing over their fallen bodies, you guys, long time no see, cut them down with brutal, efficient strokes. The larger man collapsed to the ground, prostrating himself and begging for forgiveness. You won't be killed as easily as your men. He promised to kill Darga in the most horrible way he could possibly conceive.
This is the city of Kataroff, a place famous for one thing, the S-Class dungeon that bears its name. That dungeon draws adventurers from far and wide, crowding the streets. But in this very city, our protagonist was merely a farmer. He stood in his fields, looking carefully ahead, and noticed the crops were being destroyed. Suddenly, a man named Dalgo arrived at the scene. As the son of the city's chief, he approached with a strange smile. The bully said his father told him the protagonist's annual contribution was low again. Nervous, the boy realized it was these men who had destroyed the fields. In this world, people with dull silver hair like his are called Ox, and they carry a history of persecution. It is said that long ago, the Ox betrayed humanity and helped demons. So, even if they beat you, even if they destroy your fields for no reason, your only choice is to endure. After the beating, he returned to the city center. A girl appeared in front of him saying, "Dalga and his friends beat you again." This was Namiya, the daughter of a neighboring farmer and his only friend in the city. She said she would take care of him. After she finished bandaging him, the protagonist thanked her. The concerned girl asks why they kept bothering him. With a sad look, he said there is nothing he could do and blamed his silver hair. A bit embarrassed, Namiya explained that she really liked his hair color. The boy thought that to him, his silver hair was a curse, but Namiya always said such things. Changing the subject, she caught his attention, announcing, "I'm going to marry Dalga."
What the f? This news completely shocked the hero, leaving him speechless. Smiling falsely, he said he understood and congratulated her. Hearing this, Namiya also looked surprised. A bit uncomfortable, she asked, "Kiska, does this seem okay to you?" Then she asked him if he planned to stay in the city forever. He replied that maybe he would. Worried, she warned him that she didn't like the villagers fighting with him, and if he stayed, he might end up dead. Awkwardly, he said he couldn't help it. Suddenly, the girl grabbed his arm. Afraid, she said, "Let's run away together from this city." This new revelation left the protagonist speechless. She explained that she had money at home, and with it, they could find a place to live together where no one knew them. The boy asked if she really wanted this, and she said yes. She affirmed that she didn't want to marry that guy. Then the boy caught his friend's attention. Approaching, he kissed her and said, "I love you." She responded by saying she loved him too. Later that night in the same village, the hero was carrying a sack on his back. Smiling, he knew that tonight he and Namiya would leave Kataroff. Excited, he thought that with Namiya, he would forget the horrible days they lived in the city. He headed toward her house. Suddenly, he began to hear her voice screaming for them to stop. Worried, he realized it was her and rushed into her house. Desperate, he ran toward her room, calling her name. He opened the door and found her in bed with the 3 bullies. The only thing the protagonist could say was her name. Irritated, Dalgo called the boy an ox and asked what he was doing there. Perplexed, Kiska questioned what was going on. The bully remarked that it should be obvious just by looking. Looking to the side, he saw Namiya completely turned away. Then he ordered the bully to leave now. Uncertain, he punched Dalgo in the face, demanding he get away from her. Even more irritated, Dalgo punched him in the stomach and finished him off with a knee strike. At that moment, they all pounced on him and started beating him. In the background, Namiya begged them to stop. One of the men asked what the boy wanted. Asking what he meant, Dalgo claimed Namiya was his wife. Then Dalgo looked at one of his friends as they had an idea. One bully pressed the boy against the wall, while another grabbed his arm. In a somewhat delicate manner, he started pulling at his fingernail, and then with immense brutality ripped it out. After feeling such intense pain, the protagonist began to scream. Smiling, the bully said, "One more." They continued torturing the boy, but Namiya intervened to make them stop. Announcing that she would speak, she gently begged them to stop. Desperate, the hero told Namiya to stop, but then Dalgo punched him in the face, questioning who allowed him to speak. While looking at Namiya, he thought that she shouldn't say any more. The bullies continued beating him, and the protagonist's consciousness faded as Namiya told them everything. Seeing this, the protagonist started crying. The girl was being strangled while looking at protagonist Kiska's eyes then began to close. The next day in that same village, someone announced that the farmer Kiska had taken advantage of Namia's parents' absence, broke into her house, and her. His sentence was to be banished to the S-class dungeon Kataroff. Devastated, the boy remembered that Namia was murdered. Dalgo certainly killed her out of anger for the truth, and these crimes ended up being pinned on the boy. At this moment, an old man asked if the boy had any last words to say. He ended up declaring his innocence countless times. However, this was part of the false testimony given by Dalgo and his friends. Moreover, the village chief, the bully's father, quickly silenced everyone. Having nothing else to do, the old man said he would carry out the sentence but show a little mercy. He ordered the guards to cut the ropes binding his arms. Mocking the situation, Dalgo said it wouldn't change anything and that he would die regardless. The boy thought that Dalgo might be right. It wouldn't change anything since he wouldn't come back alive. The old man ordered the guards to proceed, and they pushed the boy. He ended up standing above a kind of pentagram. Relentlessly, it began to glow. Crying, Kiska declared that he hated them. He hated Dalgo, his friends who killed Namia, and the village leaders who presented false accusations without hearing a word from him. As he cried, he repeatedly said how much he hated all of them. Sometime later, the protagonist woke up. He really was in that dungeon. Frightened, he wondered if this place truly was the S-class dungeon known as Kataroff Dungeon. At that moment, he started hearing a roar. Looking closely, he noticed something coming. It was an A-ranked armored bear. Seeing it come toward him, the boy was completely terrified. Trembling, he remembered hearing it from a few adventurers. A monster that if spotted means you're as good as dead. Terrified, he began to run. However, the bear was very fast and quickly caught up. It tried to hit the boy, but missed, ending up breaking the ground instead. As he ran, he said that he was going to die. Unable to take it anymore, he started crying out for help. A shadow appeared, asking if he really wanted help now. Even though he was very scared, he started saying yes, and gently pleaded for help. The shadow disappeared, revealing itself to be a girl. Extending her hand, she told the protagonist that she would grant him an ability. At that moment, a notification appeared, saying the ability Save and Restart had been acquired. After that, the shadow disappeared. Kiska wondered if this ability could do anything against the armored bear, and also questioned how to use it. Unconcerned, the bear continued advancing. This time, it landed a solid punch on Kiska's face. The blow was so strong that he went flying, and with just that, he ended up dying. However, sometime later, he got up. Terrified, he realized that he hadn't actually died. Looking at his hands, he said he had died and questioned why he was still alive. As he was trying to understand, the armored bear appeared behind him, furious. Without hesitation, it landed another solid punch on his face. With this, the protagonist died again. He woke up frightened and got up. Realizing he had revived again, he was certain the armored bear had killed him before. Once more, the bear appeared behind him and landed another punch, killing him yet again. Now, he died in the same way for the third consecutive time. This cycle repeated once more. The boy started to understand that in reality, he went back in time every time he died because of the ability given to him by that woman. He then wondered if he would be trapped in this cycle of death until the end of his miserable life. He woke up for the fifth or sixth time thinking that he was going to die again. Only this time, he ended up thinking faster and started running. However, even though he escaped the bear, he still met the same tragic end, dying by his hands. He would die no matter how much he dodged, left, right, up, or down. In the end, he continued to die every single time. Desperate, he declared that he didn't want this and pleaded for someone to kill him so he would be free from this suffering. However, his request was not granted and the boy woke up once again. Soon, he considered the possibility of erasing the save and restart ability to free himself. At that moment, a screen displaying his abilities opened. He could interact with everything on the screen, so he should be able to delete it. However, something caught his attention. As soon as he touched the status window, memories flooded his mind. Memories of Namia, her killer Dalgo, and the villagers who accused him. His anger was immense. He wondered how it could disappear so easily. He concluded it was obvious that such anger wouldn't vanish. Then he charged at the bear to counterattack. Knowing what it would do, he managed to dodge the punch. At that moment, he realized he had moved toward the bear and grabbed it. However, if he dodged the first strike,
strike, the second one would hit him, and in this way, he died once again. But he felt happy because he had managed to avoid the first strike. He didn't know for sure how many times he had died, probably over 100. By now, he had memorized the bear's movements. He knew the armored bear first used its right arm, so he ducked and advanced forward. Afterward, it used its left arm, so he stood and leaped upward to strike it. To dodge, the boy took a step and rolled to the left. This way, he ended up behind the armored bear. However, he could not panic and attempt to flee, as the monster would catch up and kill him if he did. Focused on defeating it, he dodged yet another strike. He told himself this was the best approach he had found. After dying countless times, he apparently managed to land a direct punch to the monster's face. However, his blow was weak. He knew he had 25 seconds to run before the bear caught up again. After running a certain distance, he stopped, noticing rare chests gathered throughout the dungeon. At this moment, he heard the sound of the bear pursuing him, so he kept running through areas he hadn't explored in his past lives. Suddenly, the ground gave way. He fell into a trap and finally died in a new way. It took at least 200 attempts. After fighting the bear several more times, his movements improved significantly. Now, the hero managed to aim for its eye, giving him 35 seconds to escape instead of 25. While running, he remembered the trap he had fallen into earlier. Realizing this was the only path with no other way out, noticing the bear was already closing in, unable to endure repeating this scenario any longer, he decided to jump. Incredibly, he avoided all the spikes on the ground. He breathed a sigh of relief. It was a close call. Then he looked up and started laughing at the enraged bear. He couldn't recall how many times he died just to get past this spot. He entered the small tunnel ahead. Looking forward, he noticed a light. Upon reaching the end of the tunnel, he was utterly surprised. It was a room with a chest at the center, a secret or rare chest. When he opened it, he found a gem inside. He acquired the Crystal of Wisdom, whose effect activated automatically. A vast list of abilities appeared before the hero, ranging from S rank to C rank. Seeing this list, he was amazed by how incredible all the abilities were. The boy could choose any one of them, but there were so many options. He began to think about which one to pick. He decided not to choose healing magic or fire magic, as both required mana generation, which he currently lacked. Additionally, swordsmanship and archery skills made no sense without the respective weapons. As expected, he should choose an S-toss ability. Acceleration could help him climb higher, however, stealth could increase his chances of survival. Somewhat nervous, he decided to select the stealth ability. Thus, the stealth ability was acquired. Feeling his body shrouded in this type of magic, the hero became excited. At that moment, he noticed the entrance closing. Additionally, several pentagrams in the area began to glow. Suddenly, numerous bears identical to the first one appeared. Judging from their expressions, they didn't seem friendly. All the bears began to agitate and roar. Seeing this massive number of enemies, the boy was already worried. He stated that this was where the true luck would begin, or he would die to countless bears. In this treasure room, he ended up being killed by 10 bears. After that, he restarted. Bored, he realized he was back at that same checkpoint. Even so, he managed to reach the treasure room again. After opening the chest, the list of abilities appeared before him. Nervously, he decided which ability to choose this time. He used acceleration. He charged at the bears but managed to dodge their attacks due to his speed because he could see them moving in slow motion. After 200 deaths, he finally obtained the stealth ability again. However, it was useless against these bears. In this case, he decided to pick acceleration again. Charging at one of the bears, he landed a precise punch. He was thrilled because he finally succeeded. However, looking at his hand, he noticed it was already completely broken. Distracted by this, all the bears took the opportunity to attack him. As he got beaten, he thought that his body was still too weak to handle the power of acceleration. After being beaten by the 10 bears again, he woke up. Looking ahead, he saw the same bear from before and realized he was here once again. However, he was much more experienced. Now, if acceleration helped him dodge the bear's attacks, then he would have plenty of opportunities to strike. He decided to pick the acceleration ability again and try to clear the room, but he ended up dying because he was distracted. The total number of deaths so far was around 225. When he reached the treasure room, he realized getting to this place was very difficult, and as he got used to it, he added more deaths to his count. After choosing one of the abilities, the monsters appeared. Charging at one of them, he showcased his acceleration skills to be in the fight. However, he noticed something coming his way.
leg. 3 bears started hitting him simultaneously, while he wondered why it was working this way. Currently, the number of attempts was around 300. The bears had killed him many times since he picked acceleration and kept fighting. Then, he managed to use the speed to blind them, endure the pain, and strike again. Over time, he got behind them and started choking them all. In this case, Kiska was afraid to admit one thing. Even though he had an S-rank ability, he was still not capable of defeating these bears. No matter what, even with acceleration, he couldn't beat them. And this was the conclusion he reached. After dying 300 times, lying on the ground, he understood he had to start all over again. Sometime later, the hero was back in the treasure room. He stated that it was not easy to gather the courage to choose an ability, because if he died, he would face the first bear again, and if he did nothing, he would end up dying as well. Facing this inevitable fate, he concluded there was no escape. Then he remembered Namia, but in his memories, Dalgo also appeared, the one who killed her. Recalling everything he went through in his first life, his expression changed as he declared that he hated this man, and that if it weren't for this hatred, he would have given up long ago. Choosing one of the abilities, he declared that he would escape this horrible dungeon and take his revenge with his own hands. After picking one of the abilities, the bears appeared. Without fearing death, he charged at them. The boy acquired martial arts, physical enhancement, and body improvement abilities, sequentially continuing to look for ways to defeat the bears. This way, he ended up dying many times until the number of deaths reached 420. In this instance, the protagonist was on top of one of the bears. He thought that muscle strengthening was definitely the best ability. Suddenly, the bear went berserk. At that moment, he simply let go. During a flip, he headed toward another bear. Declaring that this one was his target, he landed a strong kick on the head. The monster collapsed to the ground lifeless. The monster's death was confirmed and skill points were acquired. Smiling, the boy felt joyful because this was the first bear he had killed. Now he had 12 points available. The first ability was save and restart, and the second was physical strengthening. To level up the second ability, he needed 10 points. Determined, he knew what to do. His muscle strengthening increased to level 2. He thought that if he kept killing bears and leveling up, someday he would manage to defeat all of them. And to further improve his physical strengthening, he needed 100 points. Discovering this, the boy understood that for every bear he defeated, he would gain 12 points. To reach 100 points, he would need to defeat several bears. Discouraged, he declared that this was actually impossible, and that if he could not level up, it would be impossible to defeat all of them. Some time passed and the hero had already died 510 times. Crying, he wondered why he had to go through this. It was always Dalgo's fault, and because of him, he was stuck in this awful dungeon. Accidentally, the boy ended up activating the provocation skill. Disheartened, he said he didn't even know how to use this skill, and he would soon die again and have to repair himself all over. Looking back, he already noticed the bears were coming. Analyzing the situation, he understood that the only thing he could do was provoke his opponents, so he doubted, calling them idiots. He then wondered if this was how it was supposed to work. At that moment, one of the bears crashed into the wall. Looking at another, he called it ugly. Irritated, the insulted bear ended up hitting its companion. These actions surprised the protagonist. Seeing 2 defeated bears in front of him, he started laughing. He was laughing like a madman, then wondered if all his efforts were in vain. Regardless, the protagonist was filled with rage, so he decided that from now on, he would use this skill to kill all of them. The bears then surrounded him. Provoking his opponents, he told them to come and called them little fish. All the bears started fighting each other. Meanwhile, the boy continued insulting them, calling them dumb and idiots. Some time passed and nearly all of them were annihilated. He then noticed that 2 remained. A bit annoyed, he told them to attack simultaneously, calling them slug. Following the command, the bears charged. The boy barely managed to dodge and they ended up hitting each other. Since the armored bears were very strong, both died with a single blow. Covered in blood, the boy raised his hand high. He celebrated, saying he did it. The death count was 510, and that's how he managed to complete the armored bears room. Sometime later, already in another area of the dungeon, the boy was running. After passing the room of the 10 armored bears, a headless flaming mule appeared at the exit. Frightened, he managed to hide and thought he was on
on a new level, but it was still not enough. This monster had already killed him 10 times. He ranked it an A rank headless mule, but the good news was that his respawn point was updated to the treasure room. He thought that just the idea of not having to fight those bears anymore made everything easier. After escaping the headless mule, he started wandering through the dungeon and realized he had never been here before. Then he spotted a room. Inside the mysterious room, there were 3 teleportation circles. Seeing them, he wondered if he had to choose one. Nervous, he told himself not to worry about it. Quickly, he chose the middle circle. Smiling, he thought that if he regretted it, he just had to die and come back again. Shortly after, he was transported to another part of the dungeon. Looking around, he wondered if there was some place but for now, he decided to keep going. While wandering, he ended up finding a room. As he approached, he realized what it was. It was that woman who gave him the ability to come back to life, and she seemed to be trapped in some sort of strange laboratory. Approaching, Kiska realized it really was her. He wondered if by chance she was imprisoned. Terrified, he reached his hand toward the container. The moment his fingers touched, the glass shattered. In shock, the boy wondered if he really broke it with just one touch. With that, the woman fell to the ground. Desperate, the protagonist asked if she was okay. Confused, the girl got up, answering that she was. With a faint smile, she asked if it was him who freed her, but the boy only asked if she was the one who gave him this ability. Introducing herself, she said her name was Aya, a former heroine who was sealed in this place. Then, the girl asked the protagonist his name, and he responded it was Kiska. Recovered, the girl said it was a nice name. Then she asked him to come closer, and he did. Suddenly, she kissed him without any ceremony. Surprised, the protagonist asked why she did that. Smiling, the girl replied that she wanted to thank him and asked if by chance he didn't like it. Embarrassed, the hero said he wasn't saying he didn't like it. Completely confused, he wondered what this girl wanted. She then approached him again, asking if he wanted to leave the dungeon. Nervously, the hero replied that he wanted to get out of this place. Seeing this, she smiled and grabbed his wrist. She stated that he must follow her because she would get him out of there. After that, they found themselves face to face with a headless mule, and she struggled to defeat it without any trouble. Seeing this, Kiska thought she was incredible, and the girl asked if she was strong. In response, the hero commented that she was very strong. The ex-heroine then used some sort of magic with her left hand. Curious, Kiska asked what she just did. The girl replied that it was a skill called Item Box, which allowed her to store anything. Excited, the hero recalled that this skill was probably in the skill chest. After picking up the magic stone, she said they must move on. The boy then asked where they were going. She replied that they were heading to the intermediate boss room of the dungeon. Shocked, the protagonist asked if they would have to fight him. The girl explained that if they didn't defeat this monster, they wouldn't be able to leave. She explained that if he hadn't freed her, she would have remained trapped for much longer. Because of this good deed, Aya stated that she would fight for him. Seeing this, the boy felt somewhat moved. He affirmed that he was alive thanks to her, so it must be mutual. As they opened the door, the girl commented that it might be true. This was the dungeon boss she was referring to, an S-ranked monster called the Golem. Impressed, the protagonist commented that it was enormous, probably around 10 meters tall. At that moment, the monster began to roar. The ex-heroine told Kiska to stay behind her and reassured him that he would be fine. Charging forward, she promised to protect him. She landed a sword strike on the monster, but it quickly prepared to counterattack. Surprisingly, Aya was very agile and managed to dodge. Watching this fight, the boy thought she was very strong since she hadn't taken a single step back. He told himself that she had a chance to win. Unexpectedly, the girl tripped over a rock. The monster's fist approached her face. As she was struck, she was thrown far away. At that moment, the girl was somewhat dazed as the monster prepared to finish her off. Kiska intervened, using his provocation skill, calling the boss an idiot and saying he was right there. Hearing this, the ex-heroine became worried, telling the hero not to do that. Irritated, the monster prepared to punch the boy in the face. It did so, landing a blow strong enough to break the wall. Seeing this, the ex-heroine herself couldn't believe it. Left in shock with a trembling voice, she began calling out to Kiska. Almost crying, she said she told him she would protect him. From the rubble of the wall, the boy began laughing, saying that unfortunately, he was very good at dodging and had only been avoiding the bear's attacks repeatedly. Tearing up, the ex-heroine smiled, revealing that Kiska was alive. He then called out to her, pointing out that the arm was stuck. Understanding the command, the girl charged forward to finish it off. She headed toward the boss using the Sword of Light style technique. With that single attack,
Smash.
she sliced the monster in half. At that moment, it was clear that the ex-heroine was truly powerful. After witnessing this immense amount of strength, the protagonist felt somewhat embarrassed, yet happy at the same time. Aya then ran toward Kiska,
Kiska, calling his name. Hugging him, she said we did it. Realizing this, he saw that they had defeated the golem boss, and by the looks of it, everything would finally be okay. At least that's what he thought at that moment.
Now, this manga is shouting to me to say smack.
After defeating the golem, they passed through a secret passage and advanced further into the dungeon. At that moment, after the scare, the girl called out to Kiska. She informed him that there was a safe place nearby. After entering through the secret passage, they came across a strange type of room. It was some kind of fully equipped space or bedroom. Aya commented that perhaps vampires noticed a place like this. Frightened, the protagonist asked if vampires really existed here. Explaining, Aya said that the scholar vampires are the demons who made this dungeon their fortress. Hearing this, the boy asked if she was sure it was safe to stay here and wondered if the vampire would get angry about it. In response, she said they probably are safe. Lying on the bed, the girl smiled, saying she was very tired and they should rest. Kiska, on the other hand, thought this was a very bad idea, but because he trusted Aya, he believed it would be fine. Embarrassed, the girl called his attention, asking him to come over for a moment. This request left him completely confused. Aya then explained that she wanted to talk to him right now. The two sat on the bed, breaking the silence. Kiska asked Aya if she found him disgusting. Not understanding, she asked why he thought that. Responding, he said it was because of his silver hair. Surprisingly, the girl explained that to her, it looked beautiful. Being kind, she said there was something incredibly lovely about the hero's silver hair, which left him feeling a bit awkward. This hair was characteristic of the hated Osa race. Because of this, everyone who saw his silver hair looked at him with disdain. At that moment, he remembered Namiya, as she was someone who genuinely admired his silver hair as it was. In fact, Namiya was the first to compliment his hair, and Aya was the second. Looking up, Aya said that she must think so because she was someone from another world. This information greatly surprised the boy, who thought he had never heard of such a thing. Aya then asked if he didn't believe her. However, Kiska said that wasn't it, and that he did believe her. In response, the girl simply smiled and then rested on his shoulder. She said she knew he would say that. Smiling, the boy thought that perhaps this strange sense of distance was because she was from another world. Completely breaking the mood, the silver-haired boy's stomach growled. Cheerfully, she asked Kiska if he was hungry. Responding, he said he hadn't eaten anything decent since entering the dungeon. Suddenly, Aya said she had headless mule meat in her item box. With a smile, she commented that she would test her cooking skills by preparing a meal for the hero. Look, our boy got a perfect waifu material. Patiently, the boy waited for his dinner. Some time passed, and Aya finished cooking. Apologizing for the delay, she brought the food, which looked very good. She suggested the protagonist eat. Curious, he decided to try it. Putting a spoonful in his mouth, he said it was delicious. This made the girl very happy. Food in the dungeon was scarce, and the protagonist usually couldn't make anything sophisticated. However, it seemed there were some spices in the item box, which the girl used to create delicious dishes. Emotional, he thought that since entering the dungeon, this was the first time he had eaten something good. He wondered how the food could not be delicious. Surprised, Aya asked if he was crying, and if perhaps she used too much spice. Awkwardly, he replied that it was just a little. After dinner, the hero said he was tired and would go to sleep. Looking ahead, he noticed there was only one bed, so he told the girl he would sleep on the couch and she could take the bed. While washing the dishes, the former heroine told him not to worry and that it was unnecessary. Smiling, she said they could sleep together. Bro, where do these type of girls even exist? This left the protagonist quite flustered, saying it wasn't a good idea. Later that night, both ended up sleeping separately, with Aya on the bed, and our boy sleeps on the couch, obviously because he's a dumb. However, the hero still couldn't fall asleep. He thought that with Aya's help, perhaps he could escape this dungeon. He admitted it was embarrassing to rely solely on a woman's strength, as his power was nothing compared to hers. While reflecting on what he should do, the former heroine approached with a suspicious smile. She told the hero she wanted to engage in carnal relations with him. This shocked him, and he asked what she was doing. Without responding, the former heroine simply kissed the protagonist. Taking his hand, she called his name, telling him to touch her. At that moment, the girl asked if his heart was beating fast. Looking into his eyes, she said she loved him. She began repeating this declaration over and over. Bro, just look at Ageha. Look at this panel. Scared, Kiska said he hadn't done anything for her to fall in love with him. What the are
Are you mad, you asshole? Which left her totally confused. Aya explained that he saved her. She revealed that she had been trapped in the depth of the dungeon for hundreds of years, waiting alone, hoping a prince would come to rescue her. So whenever she encountered someone in the dungeon, she would grant them abilities. At this, the boy realized that the former heroine gave him an ability to save her. Continuing her explanation, the girl said it was futile, because those with that ability would become enthusiastic but fail halfway through. In other words, Kisa was the only one who managed to reach her. Getting closer to his face, the girl said she was always waiting for him and called him her Prince Charming. Hearing this declaration, Kiska was left speechless. Summoning her courage, Aya began to undress. However, the protagonist told her to wait and stop. He explained that he couldn't do this with her. She then asked why. A bit hesitant, the protagonist explained that he was dating someone else. The former heroine said she understood, but moved closer, placing her hands on the hero's shoulders. On top of him, she explained that it didn't matter. With a haunting expression, she said she would be happy, even if she was the second, as long as he loved her. After saying this, she kissed the protagonist. Traumatized by everything that had happened in his life, the protagonist began to recall all the bad things that happened to Namiya. As she kissed him, his voice started trembling. Frightened, Kiska pushed Aya away, but he quickly realized what he just did. With a trembling voice, he apologized and asked if she was okay. The hero believed himself to be a repulsive existence, and Aya's aggressive actions reminded him of the people who hurt Namiya. A bit embarrassed, the girl apologized, saying she might have been too forward. After that, she went to her bed and lay down to sleep. A little regretful, Kiska remembered that he pushed her unintentionally. In his mind, he acknowledged that he should have found a better way to act, and although it was uncomfortable, it was difficult to escape the dungeon without any help. As he was about to sleep, he thought he must find a way to make her change her mind tomorrow. Some time later, he woke up. He got up still somewhat groggy and looked to the side.
At that moment, he noticed Aya in front of him, levitating.
Wow, what a dark turn. So just because Kiska rejected her, she killed herself? Seeing this scene, he began trembling and sweating nervously. In reality, she was hanging, and you know what that means. Overwhelmed after seeing this, the boy began to feel nauseous. Trembling, he questioned whether this was his fault. His body shook from head to toe. Holding his head with his hands, he wondered if this happened because he rejected Aya. As he struggled, he stated that he couldn't understand what was happening. Desperate, he started running away, saying this wasn't his fault. Not knowing what to do, he entered the same passage as before. As he passed through, he insisted that this was in fact an accident. Exiting the passage, he was spotted by those flaming headless mules. One of them charged at the hero and kicked him in the back. Close to death, he thought that he got this far thanks to that heroine, and now that she was gone, he would be killed easily. Some time later, he woke up. He realized that he reset during a bear attack. Nervous, he remembered that Aya died because of him. As he left the room, he wondered what he should do. He questioned whether he should have accepted her love. Seeming conflicted, he understood that she was no longer alive, unlike Aya herself, who was still alive because he went back in the timeline. He hurried to touch the glass and declared that this time he would accept her love. Just like before, the glass shattered with a single touch. As he looked at the stunned girl on the floor, he thought that he would save her. Confused, she asked who the boy was. Smiling, he responded that his name was Kiska. Observing the hero, she claimed she had never heard of him, but she said in any case she felt something bad coming from him. Confused, the protagonist wondered what was happening and thought that this girl in front of him didn't look like Aya. He even asked if she was really Aya, and the girl said yes and that she understood, with a serious expression. She said she had never heard that before. At this, the protagonist wondered whether it was a good idea to tell her that he knew her from another timeline, and she was the same person who gave him the save and reset ability. He started questioning what happened the last time he acted against her. Aya, with a nervous tone, said he was going too far and that he wasn't her enemy, but quickly the girl began to choke him with a manic expression as she held the boy by the neck. She asked is this why she felt something bad coming from him. He tried to make her stop, but he didn't have enough strength. Completely changing her demeanor, Aya told him to listen closely. She explained that he must not make the mistake of thinking that everything would return to normal when he died. She said that even in death, his actions were imprinted on his soul.
Terrified, he started asking who she was. With a sadistic smile, she explained that she wouldn't tell someone as wicked as him who she truly was. Kisuga then begged to speak with Aya immediately, but the ex-heroine responded that she didn't want to, and Aya didn't want to talk to him now. As she stared at him, the boy with a piercing gaze began to offer her advice. He suggested that he should never get involved with Aya again. After saying this, she ended up snapping the boy's neck. After dying in such a tragic way, he woke up once again at that checkpoint. Nervously, he started affirming to himself that he couldn't understand what was happening. He wondered what that was, and also questioned whether it might be some kind of second personality. Soon, he recalled the girl's advice to never get involved with Aya again. He understood that if he met her again, he would die, and if that happened, it would be the end for him. Thus, he decided not to meet her again or break her seal. However, it would be very difficult for him to reach the end of the dungeon without Aya's help. In this case, he would have to find another way to do it. Now at the pentagram room, Kisuga recalled stepping on the middle portal before, and decided to step on the left one this time. As he did so, he began to be teleported to another location. Looking around, he realized there seemed to be only one path, just like the place where Aya was. Having little to fear, he started exploring the new area. Then he came across a girl sitting alone, calmly drinking tea. Seeing this, the protagonist was extremely surprised. Opening her eyes, the girl said this was unusual and that she couldn't believe someone managed to enter this place. However, the hero remained in shock, unable to believe there was a girl drinking tea so calmly in this infernal dungeon. He began to wonder who this girl was and what she was doing here. At that moment, she broke his thoughts by asking what he wanted and if by chance he needed something from her. Awkwardly, Kisuga explained that he was trying to find a way out of this dungeon. Smiling, the girl said she understood. Suddenly, she said that was a grave disrespect. This left him confused, but she explained that she was the great ancestor of vampires. With a sadistic look, she said she doubted he knew what that meant, since he didn't look like a scholar. Using her sharp nail, she cut her own arm, then approached the protagonist and delivered a deadly blow. He started screaming in agony. Falling to the ground, he only heard the girl saying he must pay with his life. The last thing he saw before dying was the sadistic smile of the insane girl. After this death, he woke up again at the checkpoint in the bear room. He realized he had been killed once more. Terrified, he affirmed to himself that this dungeon was full of crazy people. Kisuga remembered that Aya once told him some demons turned these dungeons into fortresses. He realized it was one of those monsters that killed him, this one being the vampire ancestor named Udamito. This girl dressed elegantly like a little lady. The protagonist thought he was no match for someone so dangerous who attacked suddenly. At that moment, he left the bear room, pondering what to do. While running, he stated that he only had one option left. That option was the third circle, the one he hadn't tried yet. Standing before this new circle, he thought it must be the right one. After stepping onto the circle, he was transported to the third location. Walking while observing his surroundings, he noted that it resembled the previous corridors and hoped there was no one dangerous ahead. At that moment, he spotted something at the end of the corridor. Approaching, he realized it was a sword. Looking at the sword, he thought it seemed suspicious. However, the boy came to this place unarmed, and if the sword was powerful, it could help him escape. He declared that he would give it a try and picked up the sword. The moment he did, he noticed something strange. Incessantly, the boy was struck by an intense electric shock. While holding the sword, he felt a searing pain throughout his body. He said he couldn't even open the hand gripping the sword, and the pain lasted for several minutes. The pain was so intense that over time, he lost consciousness. Sometime later, he woke up, and as he stood, he realized he was still alive. However, looking to the side, he saw that the sword had reconstructed his arm. It seemed to be fused to his arm, as if it was some kind of symbiosis. He wondered what kind of thing this was, as his hand appeared to have merged with the sword. As he moved his arm, he noticed that the sword was also very heavy. Terrified, he wondered what to do with this. With no other choice, he continued walking through the corridors of the dungeon, with the sword still attached to his arm. Kisuga managed to walk, but he couldn't even lift the arm holding the sword due to its weight. Suddenly, he spotted a monster ahead. The terrifying monster was an A-rank werewolf. Upon spotting his target, the werewolf began to howl. Sweating nervously, the boy thought this was impossible and that he was going to die again. Then, and unexpectedly, the sword moved him toward the monster. It attacked the werewolf with multiple fatal blows. In mere seconds, the werewolf was completely defeated. Driving himself forward, Kiska wondered what just happened. It felt like his sword had a life of its own because it started moving on its own. Swallowing hard from the shock, he assured himself that in any case, this was fine. Smiling, he said he would use anything to escape this dungeon, even a sinister and repulsive sword. Sometime later, he defeated several A-rank wolves. As he continued walking through the dungeon, he thought this black sword was really powerful, and with it, he could defeat any enemy in his way. Along the way, he came across a gate. Given the circumstances, he thought this must be the intermediate boss room. He recalled the golem from last time when he was with Aya, and wondered if it would be the same this time. Without a second thought, the boy entered the room. This time, the monster was an S-rank creature called a griffin. Nervously, the protagonist realized that this indeed was the intermediate boss here, and it looked very strong. Without hesitation, the S-rank monster charged at the boy, who managed to dodge, narrowly escaping death thanks to the sword's ability. After dodging, he struck a heroic pose. Confidently, he declared that now he had this black sword. The griffin charged again, but the boy defended himself with the sword yet again. After blocking multiple attacks from the monster, he dodged again. He understood that the only thing he could do now was move forward. He decided not to interfere with the movements of the black sword. At that moment, he simply waited for the S-rank monster to approach, landing a fatal blow on the griffin. He declared that after all this, he might just win. After defeating the boss, the boy began to smile. Once the boss was defeated, a small door opened, and he remembered it was the same thing that happened with the golem when it was defeated. As he walked through this passage, he declared that he would use this sword to escape this dungeon in no time. Some time passed, and the boy seemed very tired. While the sword was consuming more and more of his body, he wondered if somehow the sword had grown even larger. While walking through the corridors, he spotted someone ahead of him. It was the vampire Udamito, who remarked that it seems he had grown quite a bit. Surprised, the boy asked why she was here. They stood face to face staring at each other in the corridor. Frightened, the protagonist asked what she wanted, while the girl laughed and asked if his body was still conscious. Udamito said that if he asked her, he knew what would happen, and that the answer was clear. With a sadistic look, she declared that this was the boy's death. She planned to subdue the parasitic sword attached to his arm. He said he didn't understand what she meant by parasitic sword. The girl explained that the sword he wielded was the Puppet Master parasitic sword. She elaborated that it grew by parasiting people and consuming demons, making it an extremely dangerous object. She thought it would be fine to leave it alone since this dungeon was rarely visited. Nervously, the boy asked if she was going to kill him, to which she responded affirmatively. Tearing off her arm, Udamito praised the boy, saying he caught on quickly. Shocked, the hero watched as she ripped off her own arm and wondered what she was going to do. Holding her severed arm, the girl continued smiling without showing any pain. With her own blood, she formed another arm and a sword. Then she told him to do her the favor of dying now. Without giving him a chance to respond, the girl charged at the protagonist. However, he managed to defend himself with the parasitic sword. Irritated, the vampire insisted that he must die. The two continued their sword fight as the boy vowed he wouldn't lose. Quickly, the vampire created some distance between them. Smiling, she said that after all, it wouldn't be so simple when it came to the parasitic sword that had grown this much. Excited, the hero wondered if this was his opportunity. Suddenly, the vampire threw her blood sword into the air. At that moment, she used a skill called Crimson Torrential Rain. Suddenly, the sword shattered and several shards were launched at the hero. He was struck by many of the sword fragments. As she looked at the completely defeated protagonist, Udito said she didn't want to use this technique because it meant she wouldn't be able to use her left arm for some time. However, she said there was no other option. When he woke up, the boy realized he had reset upset once again. Frustrated, he questioned whether this was the right choice. Reflecting, he understood the significant risks and decided to put the situation into perspective. Using the first transport circle, he would find Aya sealed away, and if he broke the seal, he would be immediately killed by her. However, by using the second circle, he would be killed by the vampire without being able to do anything. Using the third circle, he obtained the parasitic sword and ventured deeper into the dungeon. Yet at the end of it all, Udito the vampire would appear and kill him again. Nervous, he thought that if he wanted to live as long as possible, he would have to take the third option. Thus, his goal became to defeat the vampire Udito with the help of the cursed sword and cross the dungeon. But even knowing this, he had no idea what to do to achieve such a result. He recalled when the vampire said that the sword broods parasitically on its wielder, feeding on demons and being an extremely dangerous object. Without leaving the room, the boy understood that he would need to kill enough demons to push the sword to its limit. Only then would he be able to defeat Udito. The dungeon itself warned that this was a race against time before Udito appeared. Panting after running so much, he realized it must be about 5 hours before she appeared again. Facing a teleportation circle, he remembered that the last time he passed through a magical circle, Udito was waiting. Standing on the circle and being teleported, he hoped she wasn't there anymore. Looking at the end of the corridor, he saw that she was no longer in the previous spot. Smiling, he said that in this case, he would keep moving forward. However, turning to the side, he noticed something strange. It was a group of werewolves gathered together. At that moment, the monsters noticed the hero's presence and he began laughing, thanking them. Rushing toward the monsters, he declared he would destroy all of them. Meanwhile, Udito was calmly walking through the corridors. Upon finding the dead wolves in the ground, she remarked that someone had clearly been feeding quite a lot. Looking at the hero, she commented that the marionette wielder had grown considerably as well, and that this time defeating him would be difficult. However, as she observed him, she noticed something strange. Half of Kiska's body was already consumed by the parasitic sword. The boy then asked who was speaking. Smiling, the vampire said it seems the original consciousness of his body was already gone. Still confused, the hero asked what she was talking about, but the vampire simply ripped off his arm, stating that it didn't change the fact she would kill him now. Smiling, she added that she would do him the favor of ending his life. Sometime later, the protagonist was once again at the previous checkpoint, having been killed by the vampire. Terrified, the boy told himself that he couldn't defeat Udito, even with the marionette sword. Despite this, he didn't give up and tried several more times. Coming close to victory on occasion, however, in those instances, the sword ended up taking over his consciousness. Demoralized, the boy said there was no point in abandoning the dungeon. In this state, all 3 routes he chose led to the same result, everyone losing control. Suddenly, the protagonist had an idea. He recalled that he needed to try something. Determined, he said that while it didn't work before, he must attempt it now. Having died so many times, he claimed there was no place for courtesy in the face of death. In the pentagram room, he selected one of the circles, saying it was a slim chance. Sometime later, he found himself face to face with the vampire Udito, who remarked that this was rare. Holding her tea, the girl commented that she didn't know the intruder had entered this place and asked what he wanted. At that moment, the girl recalled that last time was similar, as she accused him of being disrespectful and ended up killing him. Faced with this, he decided to change his approach completely and knelt before her, addressing her as the great ancestral vampire Udito Saba. He explained that he had a request. In her mind, the girl realized he needed to act more respectfully, which surprised the vampire. On his knees, Kiska politely asked the vampire if she would make him his disciple. Seeing this, the girl seemed somewhat bored. However, in less than a second, her expression changed entirely to a terrifying smile, and she remarked that what he just said was quite amusing. Surprised, the hero realized this was the best decision, and now he might have a way to survive. However, Udito asked what benefits she would gain from making him her disciple. At that moment, Kiska struggled to think of what to say. Excitedly, he explained that if he became her disciple, he would be her right hand and do whatever she wished. Surprisingly, Udito found this boring. She said that it was so disgusting she would ask him to die, swiftly landing a fatal blow on him. At the usual checkpoint, the protagonist realized he had died once again. However, he felt excited because it was definitely worth it, and this might be the correct path. He understood that to conquer this dungeon, he needed to be stronger than he currently was, and to achieve that goal, he decided to become Udito's apprentice. After all, she was a merciless vampire, and not one of those monsters incapable of speech. At that moment, he realized to become her disciple, he must consider the benefits he could offer Udito. He understood that if he could provide something valuable to Udito, he might have a chance to become her apprentice. Sometime later, the hero was once again kneeling before the vampire. Curious, she asked what she would gain from this arrangement. The hero then said Udito must have been in the dungeon for a very long time and confidently suggested she must feel lonely. He explained that he could be someone she could talk to. However, the vampire explained that in truth, feeling lonely wasn't that bad. At that moment, she prepared to grab his arm, which frightened the boy. Desperate, the boy begged her to wait a minute, saying he had more to offer. Seeing that she stopped, he felt relieved to still be alive. Continuing the conversation, the boy explained that he may not look it, but he had many years of hard work under his belt and full confidence in his strength. Smiling, he explained that he could handle all the heavy lifting, especially when it came to building a new hideout. Lifting a heavy table with one hand, the vampire pointed out that in terms of strength, she believed she was far superior to the boy. Still on his knees, he admitted that she was right. Already bored, the vampire asked if he had anything else to say. While staring at her, the protagonist thought about what he could offer Udito, but came up empty. His body trembled, waiting for death, but suddenly, he stood up. He revealed to the girl that in truth, he just wanted to leave this dungeon alive. He explained that he was born in the city of Katarov, where this dungeon is located, and spent his entire life being hunted. He also revealed that the only woman he ever loved was killed by vile people. Shaking, he said he was blamed for her death and ended up being exiled into this dungeon, showing no interest in this sad story. Udito questioned what any of that had to do with her. With a piercing gaze, the protagonist declared that he wanted revenge on the entire village. He revealed that he wanted to torture and kill them in the most horrific ways possible and ensure that every last one of them died. He concluded by telling the vampire that what he could offer her is in fact a spectacular massacre. Hearing this, the girl was shocked, but then quickly started smiling sadistically. Blushing, the vampire said that sounded very entertaining. She admitted that she was starting to feel curious about what would happen. This made the hero very happy, but she interrupted him, saying it was too soon to celebrate. Looking behind her, she explained that if he could pass a test, he would be allowed to become her disciple. While looking down the corridor, she asked if he used the auto-transport circle to arrive at the dungeon, and he confirmed that he did. Udito then explained that this dungeon had something special. Once someone stepped into the auto-transport circle, they couldn't return via the same route. Sometime later, they arrived in a dead end, and the hero realized this was the room where he was transported. At that moment, the girl pressed a kind of hidden brick. She explained that with just one secret trick, it was possible to choose alternate routes. Seeing this, the hero was surprised as he didn't know there was a hidden passage in this location. Again, they reached another dead end, and she pressed another hidden mechanism. A door opened, and the hero realized this was the marionette sword chamber. Udito explained that this sword had an unpleasant property, and she had always wanted to get rid of it but couldn't even touch it because it was parasitic. Nervously, the protagonist asked what she wanted him to do. In response, the vampire said she wanted him to defeat the sword's parasite and take control of it. If he could do that, he would pass the test. In shock, Kiska asked if he would be able to do it, and the vampire told him that out of 10 people who tried, 9 failed. However, she also explained that he had no other choice. If he refused, he would end up dying. Trembling with fear, the protagonist accepted the offer. Udito then explained the proper way to do it. He must grab the tip of the sword, not the hilt, and pull it out all at once. Terrified, the hero managed to grab the sword by the blade. With his body trembling from the weight, he asked the vampire what he should do now, and she replied that he must swallow it. She explained that he needed to place the tip of the sword in his mouth while looking up, pushing it all the way down his throat. The hero thought that if he didn't do it, she would kill him anyway. At that moment, he complied with the vampire's order. As he swallowed the marionette sword, he wondered if he was going to die. Suddenly, he woke up in some kind of reality that seemed to belong to the sword's territory. The sword's energy, seeing the boy, asked if he wanted to be its master. Frightened, he still wondered what this thing in front of him was, and it replied that it was the main body of the marionette sword. Kiska understood that this was the true form of the marionette and wondered where he was. Responding, the sword said it assumed this place was the deepest part of him. Changing the subject, Kiska called on the marionette sword, saying he meant its power. Without arguing, the spirit agreed, surprising Kiska. He questioned if it was that easy, unsure, and the spirit simply replied that it was an amusing answer. It explained that the boy was the one who initiated this. Surprised, the hero said he thought it would refuse, but it said otherwise. It revealed that there was something nostalgic in the boy's soul, making it believe he could continue. At that moment, it turned its back to him. Sometime later, he woke up. The marionette's voice called him master, saying it was a pleasure. Laughing, the vampire remarked that she didn't think he could actually survive. In this case, the marionette's circuits were successfully controlled. Udito then told the boy that he passed the test and that it was a pleasure to serve him. Kneeling on the ground, she said she was under his command, and so he became the vampire Yudito's disciple. From that day forward, a strange life began by her side. The boy managed to become Yudito's disciple and spent the night in the room where he and Aya once stayed during one of his past lives. Each hideout had only one bed, which was why they had to sleep in separate rooms. Sometime later, the hero entered Yudito-sama's room. However, he was startled to see some suspicious clothing on the table. At that moment, the vampire woke up and greeted the hero, noting that he had arrived quite early. Stammering, the master bowed, wishing her a good morning, while thinking to himself how captivating she truly was. Sitting on the bed, Yudito informed him that she would begin training him as her apprentice, and asked if he was ready. He replied that he was ready and would endure any training. The boy then said to wait there while she changed her clothes. Sometime later, both were walking through the corridor, and the vampire asked the hero what skills he had. The master replied that he only had one skill called provocation. At this, the vampire commented that it was a bit odd. Nervously, the protagonist thought he actually had two skills, provocation and save and restart, but decided it was better to keep the latter a secret. They stopped at a specific spot in the corridor, and the girl activated a kind of secret passage. Kiska was impressed that there really was a secret passage, and Yudito explained that she had memorized the entire dungeon map, having lived there for 1,000 years. Impressed, the hero thought it was incredible to have lived here for 1,000 years, and believed he made the right choice becoming her disciple. At that moment, they opened another hidden cell in the dungeon, stating that their current objective was to acquire some skills. Yudito explained that she knew how to modify all the dungeon treasures, impressing the hero. Opening the chest, it was revealed that the boy had obtained the wisdom crystal, which activated automatically. A complete list appeared before him, and the system asked him to choose one skill from all the available options. The protagonist noticed it was similar to a list he saw before, but some skills were different, as he didn't recall seeing tremor or discernment previously. Calling for his master, Kiska asked Yudito to tell him which one he should choose. The girl explained that swordsmanship was the only one that caught her attention, but since the parasite was inside him, he would be able to manipulate it at will. Thus, she suggested he choose the swordsmanship skill. Following her suggestion, he selected it, and was notified that he had acquired the swordsmanship skill. Excited, he thought now he could use the marionette sword freely. However, his master called his attention, saying they must go to the deepest part of the dungeon to obtain the next skill. Hearing this, the boy was shocked, but his master didn't care, saying they must go immediately. Sometime later, both were walking through the dungeon's corridors. While wandering, Kiska noticed that this was the deepest part, and they got here through secret passages, encountering very few enemies. However, he told himself that he still had a bad feeling. The vampire announced that they had arrived, and now they were in front of a treasure chest similar to the earlier one. The boy realized that this was the skill chest, and the vampire told Kiska this was a test of luck. She explained that the wisdom crystal in this chest allowed him to obtain only one skill from each rank chosen at random. She added that the hero's luck would now be put to the test. Hesitantly, Kiska opened the chest, saying it had better grant me a good skill. At that moment, the protagonist was notified that he had obtained the attribute allocation skill. His master seemed confused, wondering what that meant. Yudito explained that it was an uncommon skill, but without magic allocation abilities, it wouldn't be very useful. At that moment, the boy thought in summary this was a major failure. A bit awkwardly, the vampire explained that all he needed to do was acquire a magic skill in the future, and asked him not to feel discouraged. Turning away, she told him to return to the hideout, but at that moment, the protagonist asked about the door. Curious, he inquired about what lay behind it. She responded that it was a room where the dungeon boss resides, and defeating it would allow him to leave the dungeon. This piqued his interest greatly. Nervously, he asked if this meant that if he defeated the boss, he could leave the dungeon, and the girl confirmed it. As he stared at the door, he thought he had finally found a way to escape this dungeon. Kiska asked his master if she could defeat the boss easily, but the girl explained that the boss of this place is SS rank, and she also mentioned that she had been in this dungeon since the current boss arrived and hadn't been able to leave for 50 years. In other words, even Yudito couldn't defeat this dungeon's boss. Yudito concluded that to escape, someone would have to be stronger than her, and they would also need additional help to defeat the boss. Smiling, she said to achieve this, they must return to the boy's training. Excited, he ran after her, saying they must continue.
Sometime later in the dungeon, she cut her arm and explained that this was how she controlled the the blood in her bite. Looking at her arm, the protagonist thought he already knew this since she killed him in his past lives. At that moment, the boy observed her blood transform into a dagger. Realizing she could manipulate it into anything depending on the amount, Yudito explained to the protagonist that he could use his marionette sword in the same way by concentrating on his body. With clean hands, he began focusing his thoughts. Suddenly, the sword appeared in his hands and he was notified that he had acquired the marionette mastery skill along with the skill Black Sword. Excited, he told his master that he did it, and smiling she said that at least now he should be ready to fight. Overjoyed, he thought he could finally fight, but his master called his attention. Yudito told Kisuke that she would give him his first mission and explained that she wanted him to fight her. If he managed to hit her with his sword even once, he would complete the mission. With a trembling voice, he asked if this was really okay, but the vampire said he should imagine that she wouldn't want to kill her own disciple. Awkwardly, her apprentice said he just didn't want to hurt her. Hearing this, the vampire became furious. Deeply irritated, she said it was fine, and as he could see, she had the ability to heal herself. With a manic smile, wielding her dagger, she asked if he really thought he could hurt her. At that moment, the hero wondered if he made Yudito angry. Charging at the protagonist, she told him that if he thought he could, he should prove it. At that moment, the boy managed to dodge her strike, but ended up with his back to his opponent. Once again, he narrowly avoided another attack. He believed that Yudito was eager to practice a little, but something told him he ended up stepping on her toes. And with a frightening expression, his master said that merely dodging was not enough to complete the mission. Once again, as the attack came from above, the boy managed to block it using his cursed sword, but the vampire's strength was on another level and quickly threw him away. He said he understood that thanks to his fencing skills, he could dodge. However, he knew she was an excellent fighter and could even wield a large sword with one hand, and that if he happened to land a hit, it would be something remarkable, because even though it was just training, if she kept attacking like this, she might end up killing him. While defending himself, he thought it was necessary to attack her as quickly as possible to end this fight. He concluded that if necessary, he would keep dodging until he found the right moment to strike. He did just that, attempting to hit her with his sword, but she quickly evaded. Impressed, he realized it was useless, that if she continued to dodge like this, he wouldn't be able to achieve his goal at all. At that moment, he remembered that when she killed him before, she had a large sword and thus couldn't move carelessly. However, in this reality, she was using a dagger, and at that moment, the girl charged at him again. As he saw his master approaching, he thought that if it was just a dagger, he might have a chance to hit her. He quickly raised his sword to defend against his master's strike. While thinking he would manage to attack her, he affirmed to himself that this time her attack wouldn't make him retreat, so he must counterattack with his sword, aiming precisely at her head to strike her. However, the vampire narrowly dodged, but in doing so, her arm ended up being hit. Seeing this, the protagonist was both surprised and nervous because he finally succeeded, but realizing he actually hit his master, he started to apologize in a trembling voice. He approached her asking if she was okay, and the girl questioned who he thought she was. Smiling, she said that this little scratch was nothing. Then Kisuke remembered that she once even tore off her own arm. Congratulating her apprentice, the girl said she completed her first mission. Bowing, he thanked his master and said he was finally getting stronger, partly thanks to the puppeteer and his fencing skills. Happy, he realized that becoming Yudito-sama's disciple was the right choice, and at that moment, his master called him. Surprised, she said that the way the boy fought and his movements were very ordinary, so she asked if by any chance he had any combat skills. Awkwardly, he recalled everything he had been through so far and answered that he didn't have many skills really. Even more impressed, the vampire said that if that was the case, he must have a lot of talent, while the boy thought the truth was that he actually had combat experience.
Sometime later, the hero finds himself in a stone cell facing those flaming headless mules. He considers his surroundings with quiet confidence. He can get through this using the secret passage his master taught him. Today, she warned him, would be practical training. The monsters launch flaming swords toward him. Using his cursed blade, he defends against every strike simultaneously. The vampire throws her dagger. He blocks that too. Yudito calls out to the boy. He needs to keep his arms more tense. When fighting multiple enemies, he should also make his movements more compact. His apprentice says he will do just that and prepares to continue the fight. Focused, he thinks about keeping his arms tense. He fights more compactly, just as she said. He blocks the flaming swords with greater ease now. Happy with the result, he says he managed to defend against all the attacks. His master orders him to attack the monsters. The mules are out of mana, she explains. With his new sword, they are nothing more than mere chunks of meat. A passionate smile crosses her face. He knows that now, and for this reason he should attack them. The hero obeys quickly. He moves toward the headless mules. His reasoning guides him. Advance first, then attack the mule on his left. He does so without difficulty. He already knows he needs to attack the other mule on his right. A single strike defeats it. Then he realizes that after defeating 2 headless mules, a third is trying to escape. The boy catches up to it and kills it with 1 sword strike. In the background, his master watches her apprentice's performance. Happiness softens her features. Smiling, she congratulates Kiska on the result. He thanks her, but if it weren't for the girl's help, he says, he might not be alive today. Yudido comments that if he were to die in a place like this, it would take her decades to leave again. Even she wouldn't know how long it would take. She says she will make him stronger. For that reason, he should be a bit more confident. The apprentice bows and shouts that he will do his best. The system notifies him. Subjugation of monsters confirmed. Points are being acquired. The vampire remarks that it seems the boy has earned some skill points. She suggests he start using them. He does. Opening a status screen before him, Kiska sees that he has finally managed to occupy all 5 skill slots. The sight leaves him emotional. He looks at the list. He currently has 15 points available for use. He feels stronger because of his fencing and puppeteer skills. If he had to choose between all his skills, he would select these 2. But he soon realizes he needs 30 more points for fencing and another 30 for puppeteer. In the background, his master asks how he is doing. Kiska approaches her. He would like to improve his fencing level. He is thinking of saving up 30 points. Yudido says that is a good choice. She leaves the room. That is it for today, she says. They should head back home now. Sometime later, they are at home. The vampire seems impatient about something. She breaks the silence and asks Kiska if he is finished. He replies that he is and will bring it now. Smiling, he approaches his master and apologizes for the delay. The boy recalls that his job has always been to prepare tea for his master since he became her disciple. This tea is prepared with the blood of monsters. After tasting the tea, the vampire says it is very good. The hero thinks about how she enjoys drinking monster blood from a teacup. He has never wanted to drink monster blood, but seeing the vampire do it makes him think it must be good. Yugo interrupts his thoughts and asks about dinner. Kiska explains that it is almost ready. Sometime later, he brings dinner to his master's table. He thanks her for her patience and explains that it is headless mule steak. Yubino sounds disheartened. It is the same thing as yesterday. Awkwardly, the hero explains that he cannot do much about it. They do not have many supplies, but he defeated some wriggling trees and managed to make a salad. The vampire reveals she does not like salad much. It does not taste good. Kiska tells the girl that if she does not eat vegetables, she will become malnourished. She explains that she is a vampire. She does not need nutrients. He leaves her and asks her to wait a little while. Sometime later, he returns with some dungeon fruits. The vampire grows excited. Her apprentice says he found them behind the dryad while gathering leaves and decided to pick them. Smiling, he comments that he was thinking of leaving them for a few days before harvesting, using them for something later, but he changed his mind. Today is a special day. They begin eating. Breaking the silence, the hero says that if he had more provisions, he could make something much better. The vampire says that if she could leave this dungeon, she could gather more provision. Curious, the hero says she mentioned before that she used to leave the dungeon. He asks if that is true. Yudido confirms it. She used to do it often because dungeons are more suitable for vampires. They are not exposed to sunlight here. Starting to understand, the boy says that after that, a new boss arrived. Now she is prevented from leaving. The vampire says that might be one of the reasons, but it is not the only one. Her apprentice looks confused. She explains that some time ago, there was a room separate from the bosses. It used to have a teleportation circle that allowed people to enter and exit the dungeon. Shocked, Kiska says he did not know something like that existed. A bit dejected, Yudido comments that she was the only one who knew about it. But one day, someone appeared and destroyed it. That is what stopped her from leaving the dungeon again. Surprised, the hero asks if she has any idea who did it. She does not know anyone who could have done it. But then she remembers something. There might be a person. The people who sealed AIA in this place might be the ones responsible for destroying the circle. Hearing about AIA, the hero feels a chill down his spine. fine. Yudito continues. They broke the teleportation circle to ensure that girl could not escape the dungeon. Breaking the silence, the apprentice asks the vampire if she knows AIA. Of course she does, Yudito says. She comments that AIA was a remarkable person. She reveals that it was the heroine AIA who defeated the Demon King. This information surprises the hero once again. Alarmed, he thinks this is strange. The story he heard is different. In the famous tale, it is said that the Demon King was killed by a warrior named Elysium, known as a great hero. He wonders if it was actually AIA who did it. Wanting to know more about the former heroine, he asks the vampire if AIA was sealed in the dungeon. She says she does not know the detail. She then tells Kiska that she needs to warn him about something. Her expression turns serious. He must never try to break AIA's seal, no matter the reason or circumstances. She explains that AIA may have been the one who defeated the Demon King and is strong enough to destroy the world. She cannot even imagine what would happen if someone broke her seal. Nervous, the protagonist says he understands. He thinks about one of his past lives when he ended up breaking her seal. He only hopes this will not cause him any future problems. Suddenly, the hero asks Yudito if he can ask her a question. She allows it. Kiska asks if she ate the fruits he was going to eat. She denies it. Awkwardly, the hero explains that he could not eat any fruit. The vampire keeps insisting she did not eat them. Changing the subject, she says it is time to go to bed. The protagonist thinks this feels like a master-slave relationship. After that, the boy and the girl prepare to face the villain who is angry. In a single motion with the sword, he attacked. His training with Yudito continued for several months. His skills improved along with his ability point. His swordsman skill was also enhanced. Happy, the protagonist tells Yudito that his swordsman skill leveled up. Smiling, the girl responds that at this rate, she believes the day they will escape the dungeon is drawing closer. Excited, the protagonist agrees. He clenches his fists confidently. He says he will become strong enough to take her out of there. She laughs awkwardly and says he is getting better at this. His hand moves behind his head. He feels embarrassed. Then he says he is going to skin the monster. She responds with an okay. She says she will go ahead and return to the hideout while Kiska finishes his task. He raises his hand near the monster and summons his sword. Skinning monsters is a disciple's job, he thinks. He finishes the monster. Returning to the hideout with the remains of the body, the silver-haired boy announces that he is back. He accidentally sees Yudito without any clothes. Immediately, he is startled. His bag drops to the ground. She covers what needs to be covered. He is frantic. Overly embarrassed, the protagonist apologizes and runs off. Suddenly, his friend calls out to him, yelling. Worried, he thinks she is angry. Still undressed, she laughs at him and says his reaction is very amusing. Suspiciously, she says she knew. He swings nervously, not knowing what to say. Sometime later, he finishes dinner and finally wraps up his work for the day. The protagonist informs Yudito that he has washed the dishes, then heads to bed. With a sweet look, she calls Kiska. Embarrassed yet irresistible, the girl asks if Kiska would like to sleep with her. Shocked by the question, he swallows hard. Frozen, the boy asks why she asked this so suddenly and if there is a reason. Looking to the side with flushed cheek, she says there is no reason. Not believing her own lie, she continues, saying she just did not want to sleep alone that night. He is speechless. He responds that if that is all, he will sleep in his own room. She insists even though she is very shy, saying the boy is being meaner than usual. The protagonist finds her words very cute. If he does not do what she asks, he will feel guilty for the rest of his life. So he says he understands her and that they will sleep together tonight. She shows a genuinely happy expression. Shortly after, he joins her. Both have silly smiles on their faces. Looking at the boy's face, she thinks that if they are going to sleep together, there is nothing wrong with saying this. She starts the conversation calling Kiska. He responds to her call and looks at her. It seems like such a long time since the day they met, she says. Happy to remember, the boy agrees. He recalls that when they first met, he only thought of how scary she was, and now they are sleeping together. Feels strange. Thinking about this, he calls Yudito and asks if at the beginning she wanted to kill him. Worried, she asks if he knew. Calmly, he looks upward and lets out a laugh. He feels certain she thinks he can see right through her. But the protagonist only knows this because she had killed him many times before. Yudito apologizes. Embarrassed, she says that the only people she ever met tried to kill her as soon as they saw her. That is why she was always on guard. The boy responds that he is not like that and does not hate her, even though she killed him many times. Whether she likes it or not, he is who he is because of her. That is why he is grateful and has no reason to resent her. She climbs on top of him and comes close to his face. She says she is relieved to hear that he does not hate her. Kiska becomes embarrassed by her proximity. Holding his face, she leans in closer and asks what he thought when he saw her without clothes. The protagonist blushes and does not know what to say. He admits that she looked very beautiful. Not satisfied, the vampire asks what else he thought. He repeats that she looked beautiful. She insists further. He says that besides that, she looked cute. She says he must have thought of something else. Finally, the protagonist admits that she looked erotic. Embarrassed, she says he is a pervert. Kiska is mortified. He did not expect her to call him that. The silver-haired boy insists that she should not tease him like that. Yudito finds it amusing and apologizes. She adjusts herself. Finally, she asks him what he would do if she showed her naked body again. The protagonist is startled by the question. Looking into her eyes, he remembers that in a situation like this, no matter what he does, he cannot help but think of the two women who were important to him. After what happened with Namia, the boy needs to resist, but if he rejects her, something like AIA might happen again. He sits up and calls Yudito to talk in a somewhat sad tone. Not understanding, she asks what happened. Now showing a concerned expression, Kiska says he does not think his life is so bad right now. A smile returns to the vampire's face. She replies that she feels the same. He continues, saying it is frightening. Confused, she asks why. He replies that it is because if he continues living this comfortable life, he is afraid his entire vengeful spirit will disappear. When those bears kept killing him, he cursed his own fate. But now he is strong enough to defeat the monsters and even has a cute girl by his side. The protagonist cannot accept continuing to live such a life, so he calls for Yudito. The boy says that he loves her, but he apologizes because he is not ready yet. She lowers her head and says she understands. Then she kisses him passionately. Kiska thinks he loves her, but to move forward, he needs to resolve many things. Hopeful, she asks him to continue their relationship after he has taken his revenge. He feels very happy to see that she understands his side. As she is about to say something, a silhouette appears behind her. Suddenly, IA appears and cuts off her head with a sword. As her head falls, the vampire finishes saying that she loves him. He cannot believe what his eyes are seeing. Yudito's heavy body falls on him. The heroine coldly asks why he could not choose her, but could choose this type of girl. With a dark look, she tells him not to play with her. She kept repeating the sentence. The boy, traumatized, called her name. He was thinking that why Ajiha is here, she is supposed to be sealed. Then suddenly, he remembers something. He said internally, I see. Like when she gave me save and reset. It's the same as that time. Suddenly, Judith called his name. She said while taking her last breaths, please, hurry up and get out of here. She's dangerous. He called her name tremblingly. He said internally that even if it's just her neck, she is still. The girl clenched her teeth. She moved forward angrily towards her, calling her noisy. And with a final blow, she killed her mercilessly. The boy was completely traumatized by the scene. He tried to stop her, but he can't make a sound. His thoughts can't keep up. After killing her mercilessly, she turned towards Kiska and called his name. She makes a weird smile and said, I love you, that's why. She throws the sword towards him, saying, if I catch you with another woman, I won't forgive you. The boy said internally, I have come all this way. Am I going to die again? The boy goes back in time. He hopes that she might remember him. When he meets her at the end of the hallway, the protagonist calls for her. While drinking tea, she says it is strange because she never imagined an intruder would get this far. He feels discouraged, but he had already guessed she had forgotten him. However, he does not lose hope. He introduces himself as Kiska and asks if she remembers him. Perhaps his name will spark her memory. The vampire repeats his name, but unfortunately, she has no memory of knowing someone like him. The boy's ground collapses, leaving him in total devastation. Feels useless. He senses he is about to lose his mind. He starts crying desperately. He will have to redo everything from the beginning. Shocked by his reaction, Yudito asks if the man is okay. He accepts what he must do, as he has done it countless times with his heart broken. He kneels and says he has a request for her. The girl looks startled by his behavior. Kiska insists that she accept him as a disciple. They will have to start all over again. Unfortunately, the vampire is surprised by his request. Once again, he will have to become Yudito's disciple. They will need need to escape this dungeon together. Even though he knows her, she might kill him again. But even so, he will return to the same place as many times as necessary. Suddenly, he looks at her face and she is no longer there. The protagonist suffers again upon seeing his woman dead. The blue-haired girl reappears and reminds him that she warned him in the past. She charges at the boy, declaring that if he gets involved with another woman, she will not forgive him. She strikes in a way that her sword pierces his throat. Time resets again. Tired and traumatized, he cannot approach Yudito. If he does, both of them will be killed. The silver-haired one remembers everything he learned with Yudito, the structure of the dungeon and its hidden pathways, the location of treasure chests, sword fighting techniques, and how to control the parasitic sword. Perhaps the boy no longer has a relationship with her, but what she taught him remains with him. The man walks down the corridor once more, affirming that he will escape this dungeon alone. In his thoughts, he thanks Yudito. The wisdom and experience she gave him will be used to get out of this dungeon. He reaches the sword. Tense, he grabs the puppet sword, holding it by the blade rather than the hilt. In one motion, he swallows the blade. The boy becomes paralyzed. Within himself, the curse appears. Kiska greets him again and wonders why this keeps happening. He feels as if they have met before. He said something similar the last time. Nervously, he asks Kiska to do something for him, begging him to lend his power. The sword considers what it should do. If it is like before, it should have agreed immediately. Concerned, Kiska asks what the problem is. The sword has its own objective. It wants to know if obeying the boy will help achieve them. Confused, the boy asks what kind of goal a monster could have. It is a simple goal, the sword says, to become human. The protagonist is shocked. It feeds on humans like a parasite. Taking full control of the body would prevent it from doing so. If it controlled his body, it could not become human. The shadow is not sure. It has controlled many humans but never attempted to become one. Surprisingly, obeying the boy might bring it closer to becoming human. Frightened, the boy asks if it will lend its power. The shadow confirms that he is correct. The protagonist becomes excited. The shadow says that for some reason, obeying him seems like its destiny. It will faithfully do as he commands. He successfully controls the puppet. The skill lord of the parasitic puppet sword is obtained, along with the derived skill black sword. Now with the sword in hand and confident, he can fight again. Kiska moves forward. His next objective is the ability. He manages to acquire another swordsmanship skill. He sets his sights on the next goal, the Crystal of Wisdom. However, the chest is unfortunately in front of the boss's room. This means it will take some time to reach it, not to mention the danger. Last time, he gained the granite attribute to eventually have a chance to use it. It is pointless to go there now. What matters most now is his current strength. He will only hunt monsters he can handle and level up his swordsmanship. Confident, he proceeds with the plan and runs toward his objective. The protagonist goes into battle and kills all his enemies. This way, he acquires enough skill points to level up. He clears everything. It will take a while for them to respawn. In that case, he should head to the werewolf's nest now, but he cannot. Yudito has already been there before, and he absolutely must not encounter her. The two are not close in this life. If she sees him, there is a chance he will be killed. Even so, they happen to get close. As a vengeful spirit, AIA will likely come to kill them. The entire dungeon belongs to Yudito. Somehow, the protagonist will need to avoid her and keep hunting monsters. Worried about what to do, the sword comments that he seems troubled. The protagonist is startled. He did not know the puppet sword could speak. The sword says it thought it would take a little longer to develop the ability to talk. It must be because the two are compatible. It could be accumulation of their relationship as user and tool. This resulted in the puppet sword gaining the ability to speak. The sword asks what is bothering its master. Nervously, he replies that he wants to acquire many skill points. He asks if the sword knows any way to do that. The sword says there are some ahead, but it warns that at the protagonist's current level, he would only die. Accustomed to this, he decides he will face them anyway. They head to the Knight's Hall. Kiska stands before 3 soldiers in golden armor. He heard they were stronger than werewolf. The boy notices there are 20 of them in front of him. He remembers the black sword he carries. One of the soldiers tries to attack him with its sword. Kiska defends himself. Others charge forward. The boy manages to fend them off with the strength of his sword. He feels happy with the result. Kiska recalls that the werewolves did not have weapons. weapon. His enemies now are heavily armed. The boy gathers his courage and decides to face them. He taunts them, calling them weaklings. Several soldiers try to attack him with their swords. Kiska ducks to evade them. The black sword comments that it was not a bad move. The boy rises and strikes two soldiers. He reveals that whether he likes it or not, he is confident in group battles. The boy thinks that although this fighting style is effective, it is not ideal for earning skill points. Fortunately, in terms of reducing enemies, it is indeed effective. Kiska calls out to the soldiers again, urging them to fight him. This time, he is caught off guard by an attack from all sides. Several swords approach his body. The weapons begin to wound him. He realizes this is not good. While being attacked, the boy notices that he must have been carried away. The scene changes. Suddenly, he is alone. The protagonist smiles and says he is back in this place again. He feels a bit nostalgic. First, he was killed by werewolves, then by the soldiers in golden armor. The boy realizes he has died hundreds of times. At that moment, he rises with hope in his eyes. He understands that no matter how many times he dies, he will always start over. Kiska presses a brick on the wall. He asks if his master did not know about the hidden passage. His master reveals that he does not know much. The boy agrees. Kiska recalls his last moments in the battle with the soldiers in golden armor. The boy tried to fight the soldiers again and perished the same way as before. No matter how many times he dies, he will always have to restart. Restarting again from the beginning, Kiska had not expected things to end like this. He remembers his peaceful days when he was just living with Yudito. The protagonist approaches the black sword. He observes it with amazement and asks it to give him all its strength. The sword takes on a strange form. It reveals that it is an honor to meet its master. Kiska does not understand what just happened. The black form asks if something is wrong. The boy says there is nothing wrong. He just noticed the appearance is a little more human than he expected. The creature reveals it did not know it looked like this. However, lately its appearance has been changing. The protagonist notices that every time he sees the black sword, it looks more human. He considers that it might escape the save and restart cycle. Kiska asks if this is not good for the sword, since it dreamed of being human. The creature is startled. It asks how he knew about that dream. They look at each other, surprised. The protagonist says he can understand someone's ambitions just by looking at them. The creature is astonished. It reveals it wants to work with Kiska because he is such a great person. Suddenly, the boy notices a change in the environment. Circles appear on the ground. From them emerge the soldiers in golden armor. Kiska is confident because he has been through a lot. He might have been their first opponent, but he has been killed by them many times. The boy reveals that no matter how formidable they are, Kiska will always win in the end. Kiska declares that he will win this time. His sword notices his confidence. The soldiers prepare to attack. The protagonist taunts them, calling them to fight. His enemies advance, but Kiska already knows his opponent. He waits, counting to 3. At the end of the countdown, he dodges one of the strikes. The boy notices this caused friendly fire. At that moment, Kiska knows he needs to keep dodging, so they attack each other. He raises his blade and delivers a downward strike. By doing this, the boy earns skill points. The black sword is amazed by its master's abilities. The protagonist says he understands them. Kiska notices that while he is talking to his talking sword, the soldiers are targeting his back. He turns, lowering his center of gravity. With a quick strike, the boy wounds another enemy. Not one, but 2 have been defeated. Kiska realizes everything is going according to his plan. The protagonist reveals he can handle this. Decapitating another soldier, the boy realizes that is the 4th one. A notification shows he has earned more points. Kiska looks at his screen. He notices the SP of the monsters here is 10 times higher than in other places. They are on an entirely different level. Defending against 4 of them, the protagonist earned 416 SP. He leveled up his swordsmanship skill as well as his master parasitic sword skill. The sword also gained the pulsing sword skill. Kiska encourages his sword, now happy with its new ability. The protagonist activates the sword's new function, making it larger and more powerful. He feels the weight in his hand. It is familiar. His sword asks why that is. Some soldiers are still attacking him. Angry, they approach the boy. The sword seems to be merging with the protagonist's arm. Kiska lets the sword's autonomous function take over. It defeats another soldier who falls lifeless to the ground. He then realizes the sword's parasitism can actually fight for him. The sword praises its master's performance. He returns the compliment. The boy launches another soldier's head far away. away. He is beginning to see victory. He remembers the stupid reason he died last time. Only a few soldiers remain. The boy is confident. Something suddenly surprises him. All the soldiers turn and bow to someone who has just entered. Kiska kneels. His sword says it did not mention this. It explains that the man who arrived on horseback is the boss of this place. He is an SS-level monster. Kiska fears what he sees.
Kiska looked down at the black blade in his hand and asked the question weighing on his mind. Did they have any chance of defending themselves? The sword's response was less than reassuring. It all depended on the master, it explained, and its previous master had ended up dead. Despite the nerves fluttering in his stomach, Kiska forced a confident reply. This time would be different, he said. It would go better than with its last master. The sword offered a word of encouragement, reminding him that teamwork wasn't just for show. Kiska had fought countless battles using puppet techniques, and he was certain he wouldn't lose to any ordinary enemy. He raised his sword to block an incoming attack, but his eyes scanned the path ahead. The soldiers hadn't left the road. He would need to clear them out with a single decisive strike. He prepared the puppet technique with his sword, and in an instant, delivered numerous strikes in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the soldiers lay dead. The black sword was amazed at its master's performance. It acknowledged that Kiska had done very well, especially since it was his first time using that particular technique. But Kiska knew better. He had used it before. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of horse hooves. Only one enemy remained, only the knight. At that moment, the enemy knight charged, spear lowered. Kiska used his sword as a shield, but the raw strength behind the attack pushed him backward, his boots scraping against the ground. He realized with a jolt just how incredibly strong this knight was. He turned to his sword, a silent plea for help in his eyes. It said it would try. Suddenly, the black sword rose, pulling its master up with it. Kiska made one of the first strikes, but the knight countered seamlessly with his spear. Kiska managed to defend himself and raised his sword again to strike. He realized his opponent was highly skilled. He was struggling just to land a blow. Thinking this way, a chilling thought crept in. He might lose. The knight attacked again, and Kiska could only defend. He escaped the immediate danger with the help of the black sword's autonomous movement, but he knew he couldn't avoid this forever. He revealed to his weapon that he needed to use that technique. His loyal sword warned him it could kill him. Kiska smiled, a grim, ironic twist of his lips. He raised his sword, saying he was used to dying. He planted the sword on the ground to gain momentum, then leaped, holding it tight. His plan was clear. If he couldn't damage the soldier because of the spear, he would have to destroy the spear itself. Kiska used the puppet technique, creating a massive spinning wheel of attacks. He aimed directly for the soldier's spear, and in a shower of sparks and steel, ended up slicing the man in half. As he landed on the ground, a wave of relief and happiness washed over him. A screen appeared, informing him he had earned more skill points. The black sword praised its master, and revealed that with this, it could finally reach level 3. Kiska opened his screen immediately. He saw he had enough points to level up his sword, and decided to use them. The black sword felt a profound change happening within itself. Suddenly, it transformed, no longer a sword, but a ferocious predator. Its master was startled by the new form. The creature, however, seemed pleased. This, it said, was what it had always sought. Kiska questioned what it could do now that it was no longer a sword. It revealed with chilling simplicity that it could eat. Without another word, it devoured its master, and with this, it could finally become human. Kiska died again and started from scratch, lamenting his failure once more. The realization hit him hard. He had never noticed that his own sword's ultimate goal was to defeat him. He considered stopping the use of his weapon altogether for his plans. Maybe he should try stealing swords from his enemies, but he knew that wouldn't work. He needed his sword's autonomous functions. There was something familiar about its scent, he thought. Perhaps it was the compatibility between them, but that didn't matter now. Kiska was simply angry that his own sword had betrayed him. He got up and started walking, his mind racing. He encountered the creature that would become his sword again, believing it also had its own plans. The black sword greeted him, saying it was an honor. They progressed, and when they reached the point where the black sword asked to evolve again, Kiska refused. Desperate, the sword pleaded, saying it would be so much more powerful. At level 3, Kiska replied. He already understood its true purpose. The black sword gave up its its act and asked how his master knew everything. Kisuke countered, asking if it hadn't been planning to hide the secret for a little while longer. He thought about abandoning his sword right there and taking one from a fallen enemy instead. The black sword called out to him, but before Kisuke could respond, it positioned itself near his neck. It asked if he really thought he was smarter than it. Fear clenched in Kisuke's gut. He realized it was using its autonomous functions. The sword presented a choice: die now or be devoured by the predator later. Kisuke knew both options were terrible. He called his sword a puppet and asked to negotiate. The weapon seemed to like the idea. Kisuke reasoned that it would make sense for him to die if the sword wanted to become human. The sword clarified that in its view, it would be better if he chose to be devoured by the predator. Desperate, Kisuke asked if it really had to be him. The weapon replied that it didn't necessarily need to be its master. Any strong human would solve the problem. Curious now, the sword asked if its master could find a strong human. As soon as Kisuke agreed, the sword returned to the ground, urging him to hurry, or else it would be he who would be devoured. Kisuke, still recovering from the shocks, nodded in understanding. He thought logically who the sacrifice should be. Aya came to mind. He had no good memories of her. She had killed him several times. If he could catch her when the barriers broke, he would have a chance. On the other hand, Aya was a hero who saved the world. Despite causing him suffering, she was someone the world needed. That left Udito as the potential victim. He couldn't entertain that possibility. Even though their relationship had ended, he still felt grateful to her. But he also remembered that Udito was terrible in her own way and could attack if necessary. Kisuke looked at the symbols on the ground and took a step forward. He remembered the hero who saved the world and the vampire feared by the people. Suddenly, a light engulfed him. He wondered which of them must die. Inside a capsule, a figure appeared, and at that moment, Kisuke knew it was her who had to die. The black sword noted there was a barrier and it couldn't eat. Kisuke revealed he could easily break the barrier. His weapon urged him to do it. Hesitant, Kisuke confessed that since he started saving and restarting his life, he had lost his sense of worth. He no longer felt anything about his own death. So what would he feel about the death of others? His expression shifted to one of worry. He didn't know if he could really kill Aya. The black sword urged him on. Kisuke thought that there was still a possibility Aya might kill him in the future. Therefore, this was something that had to be done. But as he thought about it, he began to feel sick. He felt like the worst person imaginable. He remembered all the times Aya had told him she loved him. He simply could not kill someone who had said that. Crying, the protagonist asked the weapon to just cut off his head. He couldn't do it. The sword revealed there was no other way. In the end, it gave up on devouring him. Kisuke was surprised and asked if the weapon really wouldn't kill him. It asked if that was what he wanted, and the hero quickly denied it. The sword said it would not devour his master. It realized that when it saw his master, its thoughts were those of a human. The hero thanked his sword. The weapon told him to stop. It was weird. Kisuke promised he would find a way to turn the sword into a human. His weapon seemed to like the idea. The scene shifted. The sword praised the place they were in. Kisuke said they should rest for the day and decide together how to proceed. He remembered that this place held bad memories of Aya taking her own life, but also the happy times he had spent with Udito, and since Udito never used this place, it was the best for them to rest.
Kisuke asked his sword if there was another way for it to become human without devouring people. It responded that there wasn't. His master thought it could become human by being a parasite and hunting monsters. The sword revealed that it had thought so too, but deep down, it knew it could only become human by devouring them. However, to devour someone, it needed to reach level 3, and its previous masters had died before reaching that stage. The weapon explained that depending on others became too risky. That's why it started being a parasite to have control over itself. Even so, it never reached the level of a predator. Kisuke was surprised by its story. The black sword said that even it was surprised. There had been no one capable of using it better than Kisuke. The protagonist was happy and understood that this must be one of the reasons why the sword had let him live. The black sword then asked why its master had ended up in the Kataroff dungeon. The boy tried to remember and looked at his sword. He realized he would have to tell her everything. After the long story, the sword commented that its master had been through a lot. Kisuke said that no one in the village would side with him. They still hated him to this day. His weapon suggested it devour everyone in the village. The boy was surprised by the idea. It would be his revenge and the sword's dream, aligned perfectly. He held his sword and happily asked if it could devour them all. It revealed it would be very easy. Kisuke held his sword with renewed courage. He believed the two of them could do it. He told his weapon not to leave anyone behind. They would start the next day. The two headed into the dungeon. Kisuke pointed his sword
sword at a giant hawk. They would move forward until they escaped from there. With just one strike, the protagonist eliminated the enemy. The weapon was impressed with its master. It revealed that even S-rank bosses would be no match for them. Now that they had come this far, the only target left was the dungeon's exit door. Kiska moved toward the door when Yudito appeared in front of him. She was wondering why the sword wasn't in its usual place. The girl looked at him with sarcasm and asked what was going on. Kiska was surprised to see her. Yudito raised her arms, fury in her eyes. She began to activate her power, saying that apparently Kiska was carrying a dangerous sword. A wave of power surged from her hands, and the girl declared she would kill anyone who possessed the parasitic sword. Kiska thought this was bad. Suddenly, the black sword said it had detected danger coming from her. The protagonist knew that very well. They were so close to escaping the dungeon now. He wondered if fighting Yudito was necessary, and she asked if he was ready. The girl charged at him, holding two swords. Before she could attack, Kiska's face contorted in pain. He knelt, asking her to wait. Yudito showed a confused look. The sword asked what its master was doing, and commented that they could defeat her. But Kiska covered its mouth. He asked the sword to leave the situation to him. Then he asked if she was the vampire craving Yudito. The girl commented that at least he had some manners. The protagonist bowed before her and asked if she would allow them to pass. Yudito said the sword he carried was very dangerous and must be destroyed to avoid problems later. Kiska assured her she didn't need to worry. He revealed that he was in control of the sword and could manage it. The vampire appeared surprised. She never imagined anyone could control the sword. Kiska explained that someone had taught him how, but he knew it was his own knowledge that had helped him. At this, Yudito commented that he didn't seem to be lying and finally let them pass. The protagonist began to thank her, feeling relieved he didn't have to fight her. As they walked past the vampire, the black sword commented that she was a very arrogant woman. The protagonist worried about this. He reacted quickly, defending himself from a sudden attack from Yudito. She said the sword had no manners. Both the boy and the sword feared the girl. They started running away from her. Panting, Kiska revealed that they had managed to find a way to escape. The black sword couldn't stop laughing. It found what just happened very amusing. It was good they escaped, since no one knew what could have happened. The black sword asked if her master was upset, and he replied that he was a little. The weapon commented that they could have handled the girl. Kiska thought this might be true, but even so, she was not someone he wanted to fight. The sword asked why. The protagonist tried to explain, but remembered this wasn't something he could simply talk about. The sword said it must be because he liked girls like her. The protagonist tried to deny it, but his weapon noticed he was blushing. At that moment, the boy stood up and asked the sword to stop teasing him. She asked if the two of them were leaving already, and Kiska confirmed. Now they just needed to move forward. He was sure he would defeat the dungeon boss. The two entered a corridor. The black sword said this was its first time in this place. The protagonist stood before a chest. His weapon asked what was inside. He replied it contained a crystal of wisdom that could grant abilities. Kiska opened the chest to take a chance on the power. A powerful crystal appeared inside. A screen informed them that the effect would activate automatically. The next screen informed them that the acquired ability was appraisal. The protagonist seemed confused. He remembered this ability on his list, but it was ranked D, practically useless. Kiska decided to try using his new ability, but it was blocked due to his very low level. He opened his screen. He noticed he had enough points to upgrade his sword. He would also upgrade his provocation and appraisal skills. Once again, he decided to try using his new ability. Kiska raised his hand and invoked the power, and suddenly his black sword took on a sharper, more refined form. The protagonist now understood. At this level, increasing levels was pointless. The sword asked what he had been complaining about earlier. He revealed that he had tried using his new ability to appraise his sword, but it only gave him useless information. The sword complained about him admiring her beauty without her permission. The boy asked if she was a beautiful girl. He ordered her to stop joking around. Her weapon grumbled and said she would show him when she actually became a girl. Kiska felt curious to know what kind of human his sword would become. The protagonist said he was ready now that he had leveled up. He looked at the dungeon exit door. Then he confidently walked toward it. He stopped a few steps in front of it and observed it seriously. His sword wondered if her master was nervous, and he confirmed. Then his weapon thought she couldn't help it and ended up giving a battle cry for her master. Kiska was startled and asked what happened. She said she was just cheering for him. The protagonist laughed at the situation. Her sword said he was mocking her, but the boy denied it. Kiska smiled and thanked his sword. She questioned the formality of the situation. The boy commented that if it weren't for her, he wouldn't have come this far. The dungeon doors opened. The hero now found himself in a new corridor, and the door behind him closed. The sword said he should save his gratitude for later. A creature approached Kiska. Now was when the real challenge began. The protagonist confirmed and prepared his battle stance. The creature before him looked like a massive insect. It was a giant, rank SS centipede. It moved in to attack. Kiska realized this was the final battle of the dungeon. He took an attack stance. He recited the name of his new ability, Appraisal. An information screen showed that the centipede's venom could even dissolve metal. The protagonist thought this would be difficult. The centipede's jaws opened wide. Kiska startled but managed to dodge in time. The venom hit the wall instead. He knew he would die if he got hit by that, so he activated the pulsating mode of his sword. The powers of the black sword were activated. Now with its autonomous powers, Kiska was able to dodge the venom. He dodged one of the jets. Kiska propelled himself and leapt with his sword. This was the moment to strike. His sword collided with the monster's shell. However, he didn't understand why his sword couldn't cut through it. He kept forcing his powerful weapon, but he ended up being struck hard by the centipede. He crashed into the wall.
The protagonist barely got up before the monster charged at him again. At that moment, the sword's autonomous abilities made him dodge the attack. The creature, however, struck again. It sent him crashing forcefully to the ground. The black sword asked if its master was okay. The boy got up. He wasn't completely fine. His weapon asked what they should do. Kiska revealed they couldn't avoid this. In the end, his sword agreed. They had no choice but to use that. The boy leaped and used the puppet technique with his sword. He then repeated his wheel-shaped attack. He pleaded for the attack to work, but his strike was interrupted by the creature's thick shell. The protagonist was taken by surprise. He fell to the ground. The giant centipede prepared to attack him again. Kiska realized that none of his attacks were working against his current opponent. The sword suggested they move and search for a weak spot. The hero understood and let the sword's autonomous powers guide him. He wondered where exactly he should strike. However, his sword moved toward one of the creature's legs. The boy attempted to attack the animal's legs. Still, it was unsuccessful. Kiska thought the animal's eyes might be a weak spot. His attempt to pierce them was blocked by one of the creature's claws. After pushing his sword back, it also pushed the protagonist and sent him flying. Severely injured, the boy thought this wasn't going to work this time. It was still too early to challenge the giant centipede. He considered silently accepting his death. Even after Kiska died, time would rewind. The centipede's claw moved closer to his face, but the sword, acting on its own, defended its master. He was surprised and stood up. His weapon asked why he was giving up. The protagonist was too scared to answer. His weapon reminded him of the promise he had made to turn it into a human. Kiska remembered this was true. He was standing because of his talking sword. Even though he could redo things, the sword he knew now wouldn't be the same one he met later. Therefore, the promise he had made with his sword could only be fulfilled in this life. He apologized for worrying his sword. He then took an attack stance, saying that now it was going to get serious. There had to be some vulnerable point on the centipede. The sword used its autonomous powers and tried to attack one of the creature's legs. Angry, the centipede opened its mouth to devour the boy. Fortunately, the boy managed to dodge. Suddenly, he had an idea. He communicated it to his sword, saying he thought he had found the weak spot. In response, the sword encouraged him. However, Kiska revealed they would have to die for it. The sword accepted, as it was for the sake of the battle. Kiska smiled and thanked his companion. He used his provocation ability, enraging the centipede and making it charge at him. The creature's enormous mouth opened wide. The boy recited his puppet-style sword technique, Swift Dragon. He then charged into the creature's mouth. He ended up entering its body and cutting it from the inside. The centipede screamed in pain. Kiska knew that with a cut this deep, he could pierce even its shell from within. The boy encouraged his sword, and it agreed. With a powerful final strike, Kiska managed to break out of the centipede. He left it gravely wounded as he landed on the ground. A screen showed that he had killed the monster and gained more points.
Afterward, the protagonist could hardly believe what he had done. The sword commented that they should celebrate defeating the final boss. Then, the protagonist realized how much trouble he had faced. He had faced many challenges, but now he had finally conquered the Kataroff dungeon. The weight of his victory crashes down on Kiska. Standing in the aftermath of his battle with the Great Centipede, he lets the memories flood back. The false accusation of murder, the banishment to this very dungeon, and the endless brutal fights for survival against wave after wave of monsters. All of it had led to this moment. Overcome, he releases a raw, emotional cry, finally allowing himself to acknowledge the truth. He had conquered the Kataroff dungeon. As his cry fades, a system message flickered into existence before him, announcing a reward for defeating the Great Centipede. A brilliant light coalesced into the form of an ornate golden sword, materializing right in front of a stunned Kiska. Another message confirmed it. You have obtained the blazing sword. Covered in the grime of battle, a spark of excitement lit up his face. So, defeating the entity really did yield a prize. He reached down to claim it, but as his fingers closed around the new weapon, his sentient puppet sword seemed to tremble with jealousy. A playful reassurance escaped Kiska's lips, telling his old companion he was just trying the new blade out for a little while. The moment he gripped the blazing sword, it erupted in magical flames. Impressed by its apparent utility, he gave it an experimental swing, while the puppet sword sulked nearby. Thanking his primary weapon silently, he mused that a backup was convenient, especially with his lingering worry that the puppet sword's predator ability might become uncontrollable if it ever reached level 3. Decision made, he turned his attention to a glowing magic circle etched on the stone floor. This was his exit. Standing before it, he sought confirmation from his sentient weapon. Is this my way out? The puppet sword hummed in affirmation. Taking a deep breath, his face a mask of nervous resolve, Kiska accepted this as his only path forward. He stepped into the center, and the circle flared with power. His days in the Kataroff dungeon had been long and painful. With a bittersweet expression, he decided it was finally time to say goodbye. The magical energy surged, enveloping him in a column of light that shot upward. His eyes wide with a mixture of relief and apprehension, Kiska emerged from a dark passage onto a sunlit stone balcony, finding himself overlooking a peaceful, unfamiliar town. He gazed out at the rolling hills and the first signs of civilization he'd seen in what felt like a lifetime. The sheer reality of his freedom washed over him. He stood in stunned silence, tilting his head back to look up at the vast open sky for the first time since his imprisonment. His sudden appearance on the grand steps of the dungeon entrance startled the local guards, who shouted in alarm. A dungeon returnee has emerged. Their cries signified that someone had finally cleared the notorious labyrinth. The puppet sword's voice echoed in his mind, asking how he felt now that he was back on the surface. Kiska's reply was soft, touched with wonder. The sky I saw, it was overwhelmingly beautiful. Even the sky above Kataroff village, the place where I suffered so much. As he walked through the town gates, a sense of peace began to settle over him. Perhaps, he thought, he might be able to forgive everything, but the illusion shattered instantly. His presence was noticed, and the townspeople who recognized him recoiled in disbelief. Him? He's the one who cleared the dungeon? Their voices were a jumble of shock and suspicion. The whispers dragged him back to his past, reminding him of how he'd once been unable to use a jihad as a sacrifice, the guilt making him physically ill. He questioned himself, wondering if he was simply the kind of person who couldn't kill others. Sensing the turmoil within him, the puppet sword posed a direct question. Does this mean you've abandoned your desire for revenge? Kiska's face twisted. No, not at all. The puppet sword cackled with glee as a system notification flashed before Kiska's eyes. The parasite sword has leveled up to level 3. A menacing grin spread across Kiska's face as he read the message, while nearby villagers watched in horror. Embracing the newfound power, he issued a chilling command to his weapon. Go, devour every single villager. Don't leave anyone. The puppet sword, joyful, descended upon the terrified crowd. Screams erupted across the village square. In the ensuing chaos, 3 figures moved to escape, his former party members, but Kiska was faster. He moved with an incredible fluid speed, intercepting them and striking them down before they could flee. Standing over their fallen bodies, he greeted them with a cold, humorless smile. You guys, long time no see. Shocked and injured, they demanded to know why he was there, what he was doing. Tell me, where is Darga? Kiska ignored their questions. One of them spat a defiant refusal. In response, Kiska drew his new blade, its edge wreathed in flame. This blazing sword is perfect for torture, he commented idly. It can burn anyone it strikes. Kiska's voice was calm as he threatened the group, stating he would keep burning their faces, one by one, until they gave him what he wanted. While his former comrades suffered, he gave the puppet sword its orders, telling it to go wild and do as it pleased while he handled some personal errands. Elsewhere in the village, a muscular man with a mohawk and ponytail, Darga, was rallying his men, trying to pinpoint the source of the chaos. He spotted Kiska and froze. Kiska approached him with that same menacing smile. Darga! The man was stunned, unable to process why Kiska was standing before him. He tried to dismiss him, stating he didn't have time for this. They were dealing with monsters that had suddenly appeared. Kiska's smirk deepened. What would you do, he asked, if I told you I was the one who caused those monsters to appear? Fury and confusion warred on Darga's face. Before he could even respond, Kiska lunged forward, swift as a striking snake, and impaled him through the stomach with a dagger. As Darga collapsed in agony, Kiska stood over him, clarifying that he could kill him any time he wished. Darga could only curse at him through the pain. Enraged, he ordered his men to kill the silver-haired bastard. In the past, Kiska reflected, he would have been killed helplessly, but now he confidently issued a taunt, daring the charging weaklings to come at him. As Darga's crew rushed in, Kiska met them with overwhelming force. He effortlessly deflected their attacks and cut them down with brutal, efficient strokes. Standing over the last of the fallen men, he scoffed internally. After surviving the dungeon, he could defeat opponents like this with his eyes closed. He turned his attention back to the horrified Darga. Do you know what I was thinking about during my time in the dungeon? He asked, his voice low. He then revealed the depths of his hatred, explaining how he had spent every waking moment obsessively fantasizing about every gruesome way he could take revenge. Blowing, beheading, burning, calling. The sheer malice in his voice shattered Darga's composure. The larger man collapsed to the ground, prostrating himself and begging for forgiveness. Kiska knelt down beside him, offering a chilling reassurance. Don't worry, you won't be killed as easily as your men. He promised to kill Darga in the most horrible way he could possibly conceive. Hell yeah! This is the exact revenge I want.
In the streets of Qatar village, chaos reigns as a massive black monster rampaged, its shadowy tendrils snaring adventurers and civilians alike. One unfortunate soul was dragged screaming into its gaping maw, his final agonized cry echoing through the streets before being silenced forever. The creature stood alone in the aftermath, finding the meal absolutely delicious. From the village's Adventurers Guild, a furious voice bellowed, demanding someone deal with the monster immediately. Inside the chief's hall, the village chief dismissed a subordinate's suggestion to request reinforcements with explosive rage. He had already called for help, he shouted, and his useless guild members should handle the threat themselves. The tense atmosphere shattered when one of his subordinates came flying through the air, landing hard on the floor and screaming in terror. In the doorway stood a shadowy figure, a young, light-haired swordsman whose sudden arrival silenced the entire room. Guards and villagers alike turned their weary attention toward him. With a strained, unsettling smile, the newcomer addressed the room's leader directly. Yo, I've been looking for you, village chief. Before the chief could demand his identity, the man on the floor pointed a trembling finger. That's him. Please, chief, kill him. His plea transformed into frantic accusation. Kiska returned alive from the dungeon. He's the one behind this crisis. He teamed up with monsters to attack the village. The young man, now identified as Kiska, calmly waited for the chief's attention. The village chief stared in utter disbelief, muttering the name as if seeing a ghost. Armed men surrounded Kiska immediately. Kiska confronted the chief directly, reminding them all how they had blamed him for killing someone named Namia and thrown him into the dungeon. Sweat formed on the chief's brow as Kiska declared he wasn't the one who assaulted her. With a wild grin, he revealed the truth. The one responsible was your own son. He asserted the chief had known this all along. Stunned into panicked rage, the village chief pointed at Kiska and shouted for his men to seize him immediately. Weapons drawn, the armed men formed a tight circle around their target. From the side, the chief muttered that this situation was the worst, giving his men permission to kill. The man with the mohawk laughed mockingly at Kiska. You might have gotten stronger, but it won't be enough to save you. Another adventurer taunted him, declaring he had no chance against their superior numbers. The village chief and his cronies watched with smug confidence as the lead adventurer drew his sword, ready to strike. With a calm, knowing smile, Kiska feigned agreement, sarcastically repeating their words. "No way I can win, right?" Taking the bait, the lead adventurer lunged forward, swinging his sword down at the seemingly vulnerable Kiska, but Kiska moved in a blur. "See if my weakness is really true," he challenged, landing a single devastating blow that shattered the man's chest plate. The force sent the adventurer flying backward. Kiska now stood ready, a newly ignited flaming sword in his hand. The village chief and his remaining henchmen were completely stunned by this sudden display of power. Without pausing, Kiska continued his assault, decapitating another adventurer with one clean strike. He noted internally how weak these opponents were compared to the formidable monsters he had grown accustomed to fighting in the dungeon. He moved with brutal efficiency, stabbing one through the throat, cutting down another before they could react, and finally running the last armored man through with his flaming sword. Everything in this place was far too easy, he concluded. The room fell silent, filled only with the sight of slaughtered adventurers. The village chief and Darga stared in abject terror, trembling as Kiska stood calmly amidst the carnage, his enchanted blade still alight. Panicked, the village chief made a move to escape, but Kiska immediately stopped him, pointing his sword forward with a cold, simple command. "Hey, wait! If you run, I'll kill you." With a cold smile, Kiska solidified his control over the terrified pair, warning he would cut off their heads if they even thought about fleeing. His demeanor shifted to unsettling cheerfulness as he noted the two captives were father and son. "Now that you're together, let's play a special game." The chief and his son reacted with pure horror and confusion, unable to comprehend what he meant by a game. Kiska's expression darkened as he explained the rules. From this moment on, one of you would be tortured, but he would allow you to decide which one. Magical chains manifested around him, ready for use. As the father and son stared in stunned disbelief, Kiska impatiently demanded they hurry. "Allowing you to discuss it is an act of generosity." Sweat poured down their faces as they grappled with the impossible choice. The village chief made his decision, telling his son Darga that he would take the torture. "It's my responsibility as chief. This all happened because you killed Nanya." But Darga exploded with rage. "Are you kidding me? You're the one who framed Kiska for my crime, old man." He argued furiously that since his father's actions were for his benefit, the chief should also take the torture for his sake. From his seat, Kiska let out an amused laugh, watching with disdain. How pathetic they were. He had thought that perhaps a father and son might nobly offer to sacrifice themselves for each other. Deciding he had seen enough, Kiska declared their time was up. "I had a tiny bit of hope for you, but it was too much to expect." The father and son stared in utter disbelief, unable to process his declaration. With a cruel, satisfied smile, Kiska confirmed their fate. "Both of you will be tortured." In a sudden, desperate move, the village chief threw himself to the floor, prostrating himself before Kiska. His plea for his own life came out as a shocking scream. "You can do whatever you want to my son." Kiska looked down with pure contempt. There is no more disgusting sight in the world than a father selling out his own son to save his own skin. Enraged by this ultimate betrayal, the son screamed at his father, calling him a piece of trash. Taking in the pathetic scene, Kiska announced he had finally made his decision. He would grant the village chief's request. The chief's face flooded with sycophantic relief, while his son looked on in utter disbelief. Then, in a sudden reversal, Darga threw himself to the ground, begging to be tortured in his father's place. Kiska looked down with a cold smile. "You're too late. Both father and son now lay prostrate on the floor, trembling as they awaited their fate. With a benevolent expression, Kiska sarcastically declared he had been moved by the deep bond between them and would offer them both a chance. He drew a sword from its sheath and tossed it onto the floor between them. His cruel proposition hung in the air. They were to fight each other to the death. The chief and Darga stared in absolute horror. Kiska added a final cruel twist, promising the winner something special while reminding the loser faced torture. The threat loomed over the horrified pair. With no hesitation, the chief lunged at a shocked Darga, choosing his own survival over his son's life. He brutally stabbed him in the shoulder, eliciting a cry of pain. Watching the betrayal unfold, Kiska threw his head back in pure sadistic ecstasy. Ah, isn't this amazing? He reveled in the sight, thinking how rare it was to witness something so depraved, a father and son killing each other just to save their own lives. As the village chief drove the sword deeper into his son, Kiska's internal monologue concluded with satisfaction. I'm so glad these two are such trash. Darga ruthlessly twisted the blade in Darga's neck, silencing his pained gurgles and ending his life. Kiska applauded the patricide, offering congratulations to the chief, who panted and sweated, believing he had finally secured his own survival. With a desperate, hopeful smile, Darga asked if this meant he was forgiven and the torture would end. Kiska calmly affirmed he would not be tortured anymore. However, his expression turned cold as he revealed the true prize. As a reward for winning, we will now have a serious duel. He brandished his sword, which ignited with magical flames. The chief's relief evaporated instantly, replaced by sheer terror. He stammered in disbelief, realizing with dawning horror there was no way he could possibly win against Kiska. Kiska finally revealed the personal nature of his revenge. Ever since I could remember, you persecuted me for being an illusionist, identifiable by my silver hair. The chief, understanding the depth of this grudge, began to beg for forgiveness. As he started to apologize, Kiska recounted the history of torment, the ruined fields, the physical assaults whenever they crossed paths. His voice filled with pain as he revealed the ultimate transgression. You took away the person I loved most. You killed Namia. Sweating and terrified, the chief desperately tried to excuse his actions, claiming he lost control in the heat of the moment and was truly sorry. Kiska's demeanor shifted to a chilling smile, confusing the chief. He calmly stated he was genuinely happy when the chief killed his own son moments before. His smile vanished, replaced by rage. Darga's death was a joyous occasion for me because it means now I can kill you with my own hands. He plunged a dagger deep into the man's chest. With the chief mortally wounded, Kiska swiftly dispatched Darga in a single brutal motion. Blood splashed across his face as he focused on ending the fight. He moved past their defeated forms, leaving the carnage behind him. Kiska stood alone in the room, surrounded by the bodies of the chief and all his men, his flaming sword still in hand. With a sense of finality, he thought of Namia. He had finally avenged her. His long quest for revenge was over. His moment of reflection shattered as a monstrous roar echoed from elsewhere in the building. Recognizing the sound's implication, he immediately turned and ran toward the source, calling out for his puppet sword. Running through the streets, Kiska found himself standing alone in an empty, silent thoroughfare, utterly bewildered by the lack of an obvious enemy. His confusion turned to shock as he looked up and identified the threat. A colossal, dark, spherical entity towered over the village buildings, its immense size prompting complete disbelief. Kiska stood frozen in the middle of the deserted street, his body tense with shock at the colossal sphere that had manifested before him. Sweat beaded on his face as he struggled to comprehend its nature, muttering the words, "puppet sword." Overwhelmed by its sheer scale and ominous presence, he could only ask aloud, "What is this?" Suddenly, a sharp cracking sound echoed through the street as a fissure appeared on the sphere's smooth, dark surface. Kiska gasped in alarm. As more cracks rapidly spread, he realized with dawning horror that this was not a weapon, it was a gigantic egg beginning to hatch. The giant egg shattered in a violent explosion, sending sharp fragments flying in every direction and blasting Kiska with a wave of viscous fluid that coated the surrounding area. Struggling against the force, Kiska realized with horror that the substance covering him was egg white. His shock deepened as he looked up from the wreckage. A humanoid figure wreathed in steam rose from the remnants of the shell. Kiska stared in disbelief, recognizing the entity, Puppet Sword. Overwhelmed with emotion, Kiska looked on with tears of joy, asking in disbelief if the Puppet Sword had truly become human. He breathed a sigh of relief, expressing his gratitude as the newly formed entity stared at her own hands, seemingly taking in her new form for the first time. However, the hopeful moment shattered when a closer look revealed the right side of her face as a grotesque, monstrous mass, a horrifying sight that instantly erased Kiska's joy, replacing it with wide-eyed shock. Panic erupted as the Puppet Sword clutched her head, screaming in denial at her own reflection. The full extent of her malformed body was revealed as she collapsed in despair, crying out that all she ever wanted was to become human, not this monstrous creature. Overwhelmed by her grotesque transformation, she wept and questioned the point of becoming human if this was the result. "Kill me," she pleaded. Kiska was aghast. "Don't say something so stupid. There's no way I could ever kill my Puppet Sword." With a determined smile, he declared, "Regardless of your appearance, you're my partner." Still kneeling and crying, she looked up at him and asked a direct, painful question. "Can you truly love me like this?" Kiska was momentarily stunned into silence, his expression showing the weight of her question. After a brief pause, a blush spread across his face as he overcame his shock. With heartfelt conviction, he declared, I can love you." Overwhelmed by Kiska's declaration, the Puppet Sword broke into a tearful, relieved smile. She looked at him, her voice filled with emotion as she thanked her master. However, her relief quickly faded as she sensed the falsehood in his words, even as Kiska beamed with a seemingly genuine smile. Kiska looked up in sudden alarm. A grotesque, fleshy appendage from her monstrous form descended from above, looming over him as she sat amidst the rubble. Calmly, she stated, "Master, you're really bad at lying." Kiska's eyes widened in pure shock, his facade instantly crumbling as her accusations struck true. Frozen in place, he stared at the Puppet Sword's monstrous form, his mind reeling as he uttered her name in a state of shock. Sometime later, Kiska knelt solemnly in a graveyard overlooking his village, paying respects before a row of tombstones. He placed 2 flowers on a specific grave, a faint, determined smile on his face. "I've avenged you," he stated quietly. His thoughts drifted to the person buried there. In the entire village, they were the only one who ever protected him and stood by his side. Kneeling before the grave, Kiska spoke to his fallen protector. A sad smile crossed his face as he admitted, "You were my everything." He explained that to avenge them, he risked his life escaping Katarov dungeon, acknowledging he died many times in the process. But he recalled he was not alone down there. He had met a friend named Puppet, who, as he remembered her monstrous form, had the strange dream of becoming human. He credited this friend for his success. It was because of them that he was able to escape the dungeon, and because of her, he was finally able to avenge the one he lost. Continuing his monologue at the grave, Kiska recalled a pivotal moment. A faint, pained smile crossed his face. He explained that he and Puppet Sword had achieved a significant goal, and then she finally became human. And yet, his tone shifted to sorrow. Something went wrong. He specified that this tragedy involved both the person in the grave and Puppet Sword. The weight of this memory crashed down on him as he looked out at the empty sky, his voice trembling as he stated the outcome. "There's no one standing beside me anymore." His words underscored his profound isolation. Overwhelmed by the painful recollection, Kiska bowed his head, tears streaming down his face as he grieved for those he had lost. Consumed by grief, Kiska's thoughts drifted into despair. How could he possibly keep living now that he was all alone? In his moment of
utter hopelessness, a gentle, mysterious feminine voice spoke to him, declaring that she would grant him a single skill. The voice belonged to a smiling, dark-haired girl who appeared before him in a vision. Kiska gasped, his eyes widening in shock and confusion at the sudden offer. A transparent system-like screen materialized in front of him, reflecting his hand. The screen displayed his current abilities, several skills at level 3, including provocation, swordsmanship, and appraisal. Staring at his status window in disbelief, Kiska realized his skill Puppet Sword was gone. However, he confirmed that in its place was a new ability, Save and Reset. He stood in a desolate, ruined area, possibly a graveyard filled with regret. He thought to himself that he didn't fight so hard just for a future like this. His regret solidified into determination as he turned and walked purposefully through the stone ruins. Making his way to the edge of a high precipice, he declared, "To seize the future I truly want, I will redo this as many times as it takes." Putting his words to action, he stepped off the ledge, his eyes widening as he plummeted toward the forest below. As he plummeted, his final thoughts were a direct promise to an unseen entity. "Wait for me, Puppet Sword." With a fierce, tearful determination, he vowed, "In the next timeline, I will make you human no matter what." Kiska's body disappeared into the dense forest below, having chosen to die in order to return to the past. A young man with white hair was on his hands and knees, seemingly defeated before two large armored figures. However, his internal thoughts were calm. He recognized this moment as the beginning of his 560th attempt, ready to start the cycle once again.
Now standing, his expression was filled with determination as he focused on his objective. Puppet Sword, wait for me, he thought. The white-haired young man clenched his fist, his resolve hardening as he made a solemn vow. "I swear I'll turn you into a human." He internally confirmed his shift in purpose. He no longer cared for revenge against Darga, as it wouldn't bring Namiya back. Standing before large magic circles on the floor, he contemplated his new path. Resolving instead to save the only friend he had made in this dungeon, he strode forward with this singular goal in mind. He arrived at an ornate, empty pedestal, identifying the location as the Puppet Sword's dream. A sudden sense of alarm struck him as he realized the Puppet Sword was gone. He looked around frantically, his gaze falling upon a dark, empty hallway. While searching, the white-haired young man sensed a presence lurking inside. Before he could react, a shadowy appendage lunged from the darkness, instantly seizing him by the chest and yanking him violently off his feet. He was brought face to face with a grotesque, multi-eyed monstrosity, its massive fanged maw gaping before him. Staring in horror, a dreadful realization dawned on him as he recognized the entity holding him captive, his lost Puppet Sword. In utter disbelief, he demanded to know why his companion had transformed into such a horrifying monster. His mind flashed back to their shared history, countless battles fought together, the Puppet Sword evolving, seemingly becoming more human with each fight. Held fast within the monster's grasp, the white-haired young man could only stare in horror and question why his companion had undergone such a grotesque transformation. He was unceremoniously tossed to the floor, still muttering his friend's name in disbelief. Kneeling in the dusty room, he processed the grim reality. Puppet Sword was no longer a sword, but a monster, a realization that plunged him into despair, as it meant there was no longer any way for him to escape the dungeon. As he struggled to his feet, he recalled the unique nature of his former companion. Puppet Sword had existed outside the dungeon's cycle of save and reset, a being unaffected by the causality of death and rebirth. The white-haired young man realized that with Puppet Sword gone, his only path to escaping the dungeon was to solve the mystery of the save and reset system. He wondered if, like his former sword, there was anyone else who existed outside the cycle of death and rebirth. His thoughts quickly focused on a single possibility. There was only one person he could turn to now. He walked with purpose down a long, dilapidated hallway. Arriving at his destination, he looked toward a chained figure, admitting to himself that while he had no other choice, he was not thrilled about it. Before him was a woman with long, dark hair, suspended unconscious within a large glass-like cylinder and bound by heavy chains. He identified her as Ajia, the very person who had granted him the save and reset ability
in the first place. The white-haired young man steeled his resolve, fully aware that Aegea might kill him again upon waking, but he no longer cared. He vowed to keep reviving, no matter how many times he died, until he could force the truth about save and reset from her. With this thought, he reached out and shattered the stasis tube. He watched as Aegea fell from the broken container, for her to stir and wake with a gentle yawn, as if from a simple nap. Looking up at him with genuine confusion, she tilted her head and asked, "Who are you?" The young man was stunned. His plan instantly derailed. He could only stammer in disbelief, asking if she truly didn't remember him. With a sorrowful expression, Aegea apologized, confirming she truly could not remember the white-haired young man. Attempting to hide his own shock, he quickly dismissed her concern, insisting it didn't matter if she didn't remember. Aegea then prefaced another question, acknowledging how strange it was to ask someone she had just met before revealing the true extent of her memory loss. "Who am I?" she asked. The young man reeled, his eyes wide with disbelief at the realization she didn't even remember her own identity. The white-haired young man processed the situation, concluding that Aegea had amnesia. He also identified their location, stating they were inside the Kataroff dungeon, reasoning that since she could still speak, her memory loss might not be total. He tested this by asking if she knew anything about someone or something called Puppet Sword. Aegea looked confused, unable to recall the name. She confirmed she did not think she knew what Puppet Sword was. Sensing his disappointment, she apologized for not being more helpful. The young man quickly reassured her it was fine if she didn't know. He began to explain that Puppet Sword was a living sword, or something like a monster, but more importantly, she was his friend, and he was here in this dungeon because he needed to make her dream of becoming human come true. Understanding that Puppet Sword was important to him, Aegea enthusiastically declared she would help Kiska with his goal. Kiska was taken aback by her earnestness, stammering out a thank you. Internally, he reflected that this version of Aegea was nothing like the one from his past, a person he actively wanted to forget. Noticing his hesitation, Aegea asked if something was wrong. Kiska decided to put his past aside for the moment and focus on moving forward with the girl in front of him. Suddenly, Kiska sensed danger, informing Aegea there was a monster up ahead. He noted he lacked a weapon to fight it, while Aegea looked on in terror, clearly unsuited for combat. An idea struck Kiska, and he quickly asked Aegea if she knew about something called an item box. The question triggered a memory for Aegea. Announcing she would try, she extended her hand, which began to glow brightly as she successfully activated the ability. Kiska enthusiastically asked if her item box contained a sword. As she concentrated, searching her inventory, he expressed his excitement at the possibility. To her own surprise, Aegea successfully materialized an ornate sword, exclaiming she found one. Kiska was overjoyed, realizing they could now properly defend themselves. Aegea offered the weapon to Kiska, admitting she probably wouldn't be able to wield it effectively herself. He readily accepted, declaring his intent to test the blade and continue their advance. Putting the sword to immediate use, Kiska unleashed a single powerful swing that instantly obliterated the golem-like monsters blocking their path. The battle was over in a flash, leaving Aegea completely stunned and impressed by Kiska's overwhelming strength. He responded to her praise with a simple laugh. After their battle, Kiska proudly held the sword, informing Aegea that thanks to its power, he had obtained a swordsmanship skill and even leveled up. Aegea, having gathered some monster meat, suggested we have it for dinner. Despite his recent victory, Kiska's thoughts turned to a future obstacle, the formidable golden living armors. He internally acknowledged that to defeat them, he would need the power of an entity known as Puppet Sword, that monstrous multi-eyed creature. He must find a way to turn to his side. He concluded there was only one person within the entire dungeon who might have knowledge of this being. Putting his plan into motion, Kiska turned to Aegea and told her they were about to go meet someone. He warned her this individual could be difficult to deal with, so they must be extremely respectful. "It's time to go," he announced. Aegea, looking nervous but resolute, agreed and promised to be careful. Standing before a large ornate doorway marked with magical seals, Kiska admitted to Aegea that from this point on, their success was a gamble. He internally reflected on a past failure, hoping that with Aegea by his side this time, things might not end as badly as they did before.
more. As they proceeded down a long corridor toward a figure sitting at a table in the distance, Kisuga reaffirmed his need to believe in this chance. The figure was revealed to be a young woman with blonde twin tails who looked up from her reading. She expressed surprise as she recognized their visitors, identifying Kisuga as the hero and questioning the presence of Agia, much to their shared apprehension. Inside a stone room, Kisuga and Agia explained their predicament to the vampire Judith. Having heard their story, Judith acknowledged that the puppet sword had transformed from a mere weapon into a terrifying monster. With a confident smile, Judith declared this might be a situation where she must personally intervene.
Her decision shocked both Kisuga and Agia. Kisuga urgently asked Judith if she knew how to turn the puppet sword back to normal. Judith explained that during her 1,000-year lifespan, she had encountered many similar items known as the parasitic series. She elaborated that the power of the parasitic series was vast. While many warriors had been consumed by it, some had managed to harness its strength. Although she couldn't be certain without examining the sword firsthand, Judith revealed she had a theory on how to restore it. Overjoyed by this news, Kisuga exclaimed he knew Judith was amazing. He and Agia bowed their heads and formally begged for her strength to restore the puppet sword. However, Judith clarified that the restoration was not her primary issue. She had another concern. Judith's gaze fell upon Agia, identifying her as the source of her worry. She revealed Agia's true nature as a hero, a being with the power to change the world itself, and questioned Kisuga for bringing her there. Agia trembled, seemingly realizing the truth of her own identity. Judith demanded to know exactly who Kisuga was. Internally, Kisuga understood her caution, recalling she was constantly being hunted and would naturally be wary of strangers. With a cheerful demeanor, he introduced himself as Kisuga, a simple farmer. Judith was incredulous that a mere farmer had brought a hero to her doorstep, but Kisuga explained he simply struggled against fate until he ended up here. He insisted he was just a man, nothing more. While Judith admitted she didn't fully trust him, she seemed to come to a decision. With a sly smile, Judith declared that dealing with the puppet sword at this moment might not be a bad idea. Overjoyed and relieved, Kisuga and Agia thanked her profusely. Kisuga expressed his amazement that the three of them would be joining forces and looked forward to working with her. As he spoke, Agia's expression darkened. She sensed something coming, and her demeanor shifted violently. A sinister grin spread across her face as her hair flared with dark energy. She lunged toward a shocked Judith and Kisuga, brandishing a glowing butterfly-like object. Kisuga and the real Agia looked on in horror at the transformed, menacing version of Agia, while Judith was stunned by the sudden violent intent directed at her. The possessed Agia lunged at Judith with sharpened claws, but Judith managed to parry the fierce assault. Watching from the side, Kisuga could only cry out Judith's name in alarm. The conflict shifted to a metaphysical space, where the real Agia, bewildered, questioned the existence of her double. The sinister doppelganger confronted her, asking who she was, before beginning to reveal her own identity. Dark Agia, the entity declared, striking the real Agia. She proclaimed herself to be the true Agia, and the other a fake, causing the original to cry out as Kisuga watched helplessly. Dark Agia calmly stated that she and Agia were the same being and commanded her to become one. When Agia refused, Dark Agia scoffed at her resistance and announced her plan to erase her and take her place entirely. As Dark Agia's blade descended, Judith suddenly intervened, blocking the attack with her own weapon. A wide, fanged grin spread across Judith's face, revealing her true nature as she effortlessly held back the assault. The real Agia stared in disbelief. A vampire. With a menacing grin revealing her vampiric fangs, Judith warned Dark Agia that there would be a steep price to pay for running wild in her hideout. Kisuga could only watch in shock, calling out Judith's name. As Judith and Dark Agia clashed in a flurry of motion, Kisuga's mind raced, finally distinguishing between the malevolent Dark Agia and the one he knew. He realized they were completely different people. The truth crashed down on Kisuga as he understood that all the pain and suffering they had endured was the work of this doppelganger. Meanwhile, Dark Agia parried Judith's attack, mockingly asking if that was all the vampire could do, before lunging with a cry of "Die!" With his conviction solidified, Kisuga drew his own sword, declaring that if this was the situation, he would be the one to stop Dark Agia. Before he could act, the original Agia stepped in his path, holding a dagger and threatening to cut him down if he didn't move. Unfazed, Kisuga smirked, challenging her by saying he knew what would happen even if she killed him, which infuriated Agia, who screamed at him not to get in her way. Kiska calmly clarified he never intended to interfere. My only desire is to protect the people who are close to me. Dark Ajia desperately pleaded her case, insisting she was the true hero who saved the world and that the Ajia beside Kiska was a fake. Unmoved, Kiska calmly stated her status as a hero was irrelevant to him. The only thing I know for certain is that you are someone who does not belong here. Kiska's complete rejection shattered Dark Ajia's composure. She collapsed, lamenting that even after saving the world, everyone still loved the other Ajia, that she had never been loved by anyone. Her profound sorrow erupted into a raw, agonized scream that echoed through the room. As Kiska, Ajia, and Judith watched in shock, Dark Ajia's despair curdled into a nihilistic wish. Crying, she declared that if she had known this would be her reward, she never would have saved the world. It should all just disappear. With a newfound serene smile, she uttered a single world-ending word: reset. Following her declaration, a torrent of pure darkness erupted from Dark Ajia's hand, rushing toward the stunned trio. The darkness rapidly filled all empty space, enveloping the entire world and consuming the horrified group. An omniscient voice reflected on the cataclysm. It wasn't caused by simple jealousy, anger, or hatred. The world came to an end because of a single Yandere girl's whim. Dark Ajia's final absolute justification echoed in the void. A world without love is a world I don't need. With this, a new arc began. Kiska found himself sitting alone in the bar of the Adventurers Guild in Qatar Village, having a drink. He somberly recalled the moment Dark Ajia declared a reset, an act that caused the entire world to be swallowed by darkness. His memory continued to the immediate aftermath. After regaining his senses, he had found himself floating in a featureless, grid-lined void without sky or ground, where he was confronted by strange geometric entities. A voice emanated from them asking why he looked like he had seen a ghost. The entity cryptically stated that Kiska's ordeal had provided it with great entertainment. Overwhelmed and disoriented, Kiska demanded to know the identity of the entity and the nature of the strange dimension he was in. The mysterious entity introduced itself as an observer of the world, calling the void dimension the end of a ruined world. It confirmed Kiska's fears, stating that a being called Dark Ajia had rewritten causality itself, leading to the world's destruction. Kiska questioned why he remained conscious if the world was gone. He theorized that his ability to save and reset is what allowed him to exist outside the flow of causality. The observer, addressing him by the name Kiska, prepared to ask him a question. The observer posed a critical question: "Don't you want to save Ajia Tabaki?" It revealed that she held the key to the world's survival and potential rebirth, shocking Kiska. Kiska reflected on this revelation, recalling that his strange fate had begun the moment he met Ajia. He pondered her connection to Dark Ajia and her true identity, admitting that while he didn't understand it, he accepted that she was the key. With newfound resolve, Kiska clenched his fist and declared, "Then I'll be the one to save her." The observer expressed his satisfaction with his determination, declaring that the fate of the world now rested in Kiska's hands. The observer forcefully sent him away, back to the world 100 years before its destruction. A few weeks had passed since Kiska was sent 100 years into the past. He had been searching for Ajia Tabaki the entire time, but had yet to find a single clue to her whereabouts. While Kiska aided the Adventurers Guild, a heavily armored female knight made an announcement seeking the platinum-ranked adventurer who had cleared the Kataroff dungeon. Kiska, who had registered with the guild and completed the dungeon to cover his living expenses, realized she was looking for him. The knight approached his table and confronted him, asking why he hadn't stepped forward immediately. Kiska, flustered, could only offer the weak excuse that he was in a hurry to finish his meal. Visibly annoyed but accepting his answer, the knight dismissed his excuse, declaring it an emergency. With no time to waste, she grabbed him firmly by the arm and effortlessly dragged him from his seat and out of the building. Kiska was stunned by her immense physical strength. After being pulled through the city streets, the knight stopped before a large stone structure. She announced to a waiting crowd that she had brought the man who cleared the Kataroff dungeon, revealing their destination was the dungeon's entrance. Kiska was presented to a full party of adventurers.
adventurers. Their leader, a woman with long, light-colored hair, thanked the knight who brought him. Another knight, Canaria, observed Kiska and internally noted he didn't seem as strong as she had imagined. When asked his name, Kiska introduced himself. Upon hearing this, Canaria immediately voiced her distrust, questioning if they could really rely on a complete stranger. The party leader calmly told her to settle down and then apologized to Kiska for the outburst, explaining they first needed to earn his trust. She asked him to keep their upcoming discussion a secret, and he agreed. The leader revealed that they had been tracking a specific person who was now hiding within the Kataroff dungeon. Acknowledging that he likely knew the dungeon better than anyone, Kiska asked who their target was. With a confident smile, the leader delivered the shocking answer. Our target is the Demon King. Kiska was left utterly stunned by the revelation. Stammering in disbelief, he demanded to know who they were. The scene shifted as a new narration began, explaining that approximately 100 years ago, a legendary hero party had defeated the Demon King. The party leader, with a confident smile, revealed her true identity to the stunned Kiska. She was the renowned hero Illigan. She gestured to her legendary companions and asked if this display satisfied his curiosity.
Kaido stood frozen, the weight of Illigan's words settling over him like a crushing wave. The hero had just revealed that their forces were locked in a desperate battle with the Demon Lord's army in the Western Aryan region. Complete annihilation of the enemy was the only way to ensure they never rose again. Still processing that the legendary hero herself was personally requesting his aid, Kaido found his voice. Before I answer, may I ask something? Illigan's expression softened. Anything. He took a breath. Do you or your party know a girl named Ajahatsubaki? The question hung in the air. The entire reason I became an adventurer was to find her. Illigan turned to her companions, hope and doubt flickering across her features as she looked from face to face. One by one, they shook their heads. None of them recognized the name. I'm sorry, Illigan said gently, and Kaido's shoulders visibly drooped with disappointment. But the hero wasn't finished. She stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of a promise. If you lend us your strength, I swear, the hero's party will use all its influence to help you find her after we defeat the Demon Lord. Kaido's eyes widened. The proposition struck him like lightning. He looked at Illigan, at the sincerity burning in her gaze, and made his decision. If my power is sufficient, I'll help. Illigan's face lit up with joy. She extended her hand, and he took it, their grip firm and certain. As they clasped hands, a narrator's voice echoed through the moment. A destiny that began 100 years ago is now moving once more. Still in disbelief that he was actually standing with the hero's party, Kaido tried to ground himself in the present. Ilin, breaking the comfortable silence, clapped his hands together. Let's do introductions. Kiska, you start. Kaido blinked at the nickname but recovered quickly. I'm Kiska, swordsman adventurer. I have a skill called taunt. The party members exchanged approving glances. A platinum rank with taunt, he'd make an excellent evasion tank, drawing enemy attention while dodging their attack. Ilin stepped forward with natural grace. I'm Ilin Resta, current hero, master rank, and first prince of the kingdom of Farna. Kaido's mind raced. Even in his future, 100 years from now, Ilin Resta was legendary, destined to defeat the Demon Lord. And at 7th in the master tier, he was literally the 7th strongest person in the world. A blonde woman spoke next, her words clipped and precise. Canaria, Holy Knight, diamond rank. Her bluntness drew a laugh from another party member. Still terrible at communication, I see. A large, jovial man in horned armor stepped forward, his presence warm and welcoming. Gorgon, warrior. He clapped Kaido on the shoulder. We're a bit quirky, but everyone here's got a solid backbone. Glad to have you. The group's attention shifted to a silent, shadowy figure. Knock, someone offered, but the figure gave no response. Kaido internally noted that the party was indeed full of oddballs, but undeniably amazing. He assumed introductions were complete. Then he noticed her. A small elven girl had been standing with the group the entire time. Kaido's heart clenched. A lost child in a place like this? He approached, crouching down with what he thought was kindness, and patted her head. Where's your mother, little one? The girl's face flushed crimson with rage and embarrassment. Another party member burst into laughter. That's now. She's an elven mage, and she's far older than all of us combined. Kaido's hand froze mid-pat. Elves, long-lived race, deceptively young appearance. The realization hit him like a wall. I'm so sorry, he stammered, bowing quickly. Privately, he found her childish reaction amusing, but he had the sense to keep that thought to himself. Still flustered, now gripped her staff and declared, I won't won't forgive you if you ever treat me like a child again." Elijin smiled warmly. "And now, introductions are finally complete." She pointed toward a massive structure in the distance. "Our destination, the Katarov dungeon." The party began moving, but Kaido walked in the opposite direction. "Hey, wrong way," a companion called out. Elijin led them to a stone dais. "This is the teleportation circle for the dungeon's second entrance." The female knight's face went pale with recognition. "This entrance, it's used to banish criminals." Her alarm deepened as Kaido calmly added, "This is where I entered the dungeon from, and survived." She stared at him, questions forming, but Elijin simply turned to Kaido with casual curiosity. "Are the monsters beyond this point strong?" Kaido's expression grew distant. "My past self would have died hundreds of times against them." Elijin smiled confidently. "Perfect warm-up then." As the party gathered on the circle, the knight reflected on Elijin's kindness, how he didn't press Kaido about his painful past. She didn't see the way Kaido steeled himself, thinking, "This is my second time challenging this dungeon. This time I will defeat the Demon King." Light engulfed them, the teleportation completed, but Kaido found himself alone in a stone corridor. No party, and this wasn't where he'd arrived on his first journey. His priority was clear: regroup. He moved forward, recalling that he'd been too weak to explore this vast floor during his previous time here. Then he sensed it, an approaching presence. Here it comes. A massive ape-like monster with a prominent mohawk blocked his path, unleashing a guttural roar. Kaido remained unfazed, internally amused. Mohawks were apparently a trend even in this era. "Bugbear," he identified calmly. He'd fought this creature over 500 times in his past life. His body remembered. As the monster began its opening attack, Kaido crouched forward, his blade singing through the air in a flawless arc. The bugbear's roar died mid-sound as its head separated from its body. Standing over the fallen creature, Kaido reflected that the fight had been close. He'd almost acted on the reflex to fight barehanded like he used to. He resolved to quickly clear the remaining monsters and rejoin his party. Then he saw the path ahead. A spike trap lined the corridor floor, and Kaido froze. Fear gripped him as memories surfaced, charging recklessly through such dangers, relying on his save and reset ability. The trauma from that time still ran deep. Further down, he discovered a treasure chest. Recognition sparked. This was where he'd acquired his second skill in his original timeline. Could he obtain it again now that he was 100 years in the past? Opening the chest revealed a list of acquirable skill. Relief washed over him as he saw he could use it. He considered his choice carefully. In his previous life, unarmed and desperate, he'd survived this floor through trickery alone. Now, with his flaming sword and new skills, he selected acceleration from the item box. Ready now. Activating acceleration, Kaido leaped forward and dispatched an entire group of bugbears in a single instantaneous slash. He stood amidst their fallen bodies, surprised. Were they always this weak? The difference his new weapon and skills made was immense. After struggling so much when he was barehanded, the monsters of this dungeon no longer felt like a threat. But his goal wasn't merely to clear the dungeon, it was to defeat the Demon King. Before regrouping with his party, he needed to check on something important. He walked with purpose toward a specific location, a hopeful yet uncertain thought echoing in his mind. Maybe, just maybe, he arrived before a large, glowing cylindrical seal. Empty. "Aji," he whispered. "Does this mean, in this era, she hasn't been sealed yet?" While searching the stone corridors, Kaido was drawn by the sounds of battle. Someone was fighting inside a bugbear den up ahead. Peering into the chamber, he recognized Canaria, the formidable warrior, single-handedly fending off a werewolf. But Kaido knew this area well. The true danger wasn't any single monster. It was their tactic of swarming and surrounding prey. As if to prove his point, Canaria used acceleration to reposition amidst a growing horde. She was beginning to be overwhelmed. Kaido leaped into the fray. "I'm here to help." Canaria's eyes widened in surprise as he landed beside her. They fought back to back, their movements synchronized, systematically eliminating the werewolf pack. After the last monster fell, Kaido breathed a sigh of relief. "We made it." But Canaria turned to him not with gratitude, but with a stern expression. "Why did you interfere? You're just a guide. I could have handled them." Kaido's words died in his throat. She saw him as a burden. His thoughts drifted to his past, the teleportation circle used to exile criminals like him. Of course she'd distrust him. He was used to this. "Kiska," her voice cut through his brooding. He looked up. Canaria's expression was serious. "You dying would be a problem for me," she clarified, As adventurers, it's our duty to protect ordinary citizens. Since I forced you to come, you're my responsibility now." Her voice grew passionate. "You must make it out of this dungeon alive." Kaido was visibly moved. He hadn't expected such fierce sense of duty. "My past," he began, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "It was full of misery. I gave everything I had and still failed to protect the one person I loved." He raised a hand. "You don't have to say anything." But Canaria surprised him. Everyone has a past they can't forget, memories they wish they didn't have. Taken aback by her empathy, Kaido apologized. Canaria simply turned away with a huff. Kaido internally reflected that she was a much better person than he'd initially thought. They walked through the stone corridor together. "Do you know where Prince Elijin and the others might have gone?" Kaido asked. Canaria reasoned. "His Highness would likely seek out the Demon King alone. If we head to where the Demon King is most likely to be, we can intercept him." Their path was interrupted by a large, crumbling hole in the wall. Kaido stopped, a look of cheerful recognition spreading across his face. "I know this place. This is Lady Judith's second hideout. I used to come here 100 years ago." Canaria pointed at the hole. "Where does it lead?" "Oh, it's for the vampires." The word vampires triggered an immediate severe reaction from Canaria. Kaido instantly panicked. Her strong sense of justice would compel her to demand they slay the creature. He needed a lie fast. "I mean, it's a break room. I used it. Has a kitchen, bed. Very normal." Canaria seemed unconvinced but nodded. "Time is of the essence. We must keep moving." As they continued, Kaido breathed a sigh of relief. Even after 100 years, his view of Lady Judith, vampire though she was, as his beloved benefactor hadn't changed. "What are your thoughts on the Demon King's location?" he asked, steering the conversation to safer ground. Canaria explained. After taking heavy damage from Elijin's attack at Arian, he likely fled into the dungeon to heal. "But I suspect another reason for his presence." Her voice grew grave. "The Demon King's true objective may be to devour the bosses of Katarov Dungeon. By consuming them, he can absorb their power and grow even stronger." Kaido was shocked by the grim possibility. "If your theory is correct," he said slowly, "we might find the others by heading to the boss room." Canaria agreed but warned, "Be prepared for anything. The Demon King himself could be waiting." They steeled themselves and approached a large, ominous door. As they neared, the distinct sounds of fierce battle echoed from within. Alarmed, Kaido urged, "We need to open it. Is it the Legends party fighting, or the Demon King?" They threw their weight against the heavy doors, but they refused to budge. "The room is sealed until the battle ends," Canaria surmised. At that exact moment, the sounds of combat abruptly stopped. The doors began to creak open. They swung wide to reveal a chamber filled with rubble. Sitting calmly on a shattered stone block, his sword resting across his lap, was Elijin. Kaido and Canaria cried out his name in utter shock. Elijin greeted them cheerfully, completely unharmed. "As you can see," Canaria marveled at his strength. "He defeated the golem alone, the same one even Arya has struggled against." Shifting focus, Elijin asked Kaido, "Are the other boss rooms still intact?" Kaido nodded enthusiastically. "As far as I know, 2 remain. The Griffin's chamber and the Centipede's chamber." Canaria recalled Judith mentioning the Centipede only moved in about 50 years ago. A different boss might be there in this era. Confident in Kaido's knowledge, Elijin rallied them. "Let's defeat the remaining bosses before the Demon King can devour them." Upon arriving at the Griffin's chamber, the entire party was stunned into silence. The room was empty, splattered with gore. No sign of the boss. Canaria's face fell. "We're too late. The Demon King has already consumed the Griffin," she admitted. "I underestimated our foe." Elijin looked to Kaido. "Next location?" Kaido's voice was grim. "Only the final boss chamber remained." Understanding the dire consequences if that boss was also devoured, Elijin commanded urgently, "Lead us there, immediately." Kaido acknowledged, and they prepared to rush to the dungeon's end. As they raced through the corridor, Kaido asked anxiously, "Shouldn't we regroup with the others?" Elijin dismissed the idea. "Time is of the essence. We don't need to regroup." His declaration shocked Kaido. "I alone will fight the Demon King," he explained with unwavering confidence. "As the hero, only I can truly fight him. My attacks are so powerful they might inadvertently harm my allies if they're too close." They arrived at a pedestal with an open, empty chest. Canaria noted, "The Crystal of Wisdom has already been used." Kaido looked ahead and confirmed, "We've reached our destination." They stood before a massive sealed door bearing a crescent moon emblem. "The final boss chamber," Kaido identified. Internally, he wondered, final boss or Demon King? With a determined look, Elijin gave the command. Together, the 3 of them pushed open the heavy, ornate doors and stepped into the chamber beyond. Inside, they were met with a shocking scene. The dungeon's final boss lay defeated, its remains piled on the floor. Sitting amidst the carnage was the colossal, horned Demon King, casually consuming a piece of the fallen boss while holding a beverage. Kaido voiced the party's shared horror. The Demon King is eating the boss. Elijin, trying to muster his courage, identified the powerful figure. Demon King Zorga, what are you doing? Unfazed, Canaria smirked and asked Zorga, how does the final boss taste? The Demon King paused, considering the question, before delivering a dismissive verdict. It was pretty average. As Zorga casually finished his meal, Elijin prepared for battle, imbuing his sword with holy light. Let's settle this. Zorga rose to his full, imposing height. I can feel power surging through me, and the hero's arrival saves me the trouble of hunting you down. Kaido was visibly intimidated by the Demon King's immense size. Internally, he questioned if Elijin could win. With a menacing grin, Zorga lunged forward to attack. Canaria shouted a warning to Kaido, but Elijin intercepted the charge, unleashing Holy Sword Style, Cruciform Slash to meet Zorga's unorthodox sword style, Profane Slash. The two opposing techniques collided in a violent burst of energy, neutralizing each other completely. Kaido and Canaria watched in astonishment. The high-speed battle continued, their blades clashing with such force that stray shock waves rippled through the chamber. As one such wave headed for Kaido, Canaria shouted, "Watch out!" Kaido dodged. "I'm all right, thanks to my skill." Canaria warned gravely, if either of their attacks lands, it's instantly fatal. We must focus solely on evasion. Kaido stared in disbelief at the Demon King's overwhelming power. Canaria explained, Zorga is a mutated species of man-eating giant. He fled here after taking a critical blow from Elijin at Arian. She revealed a crucial detail. Among the master class, Elijin is ranked 7th. Zorga is ranked 5th. Kaido processed this with dawning horror. And now that he's devoured the dungeon bosses, he's most likely even stronger than Elijin. The entire party looked on with grim understanding. Believing his victory assured, Zorga commended Elijin. You've pushed me this far, but the fight is over. He lunged forward, unleashing a massive horizontal slash. Annihilation! Kaido cried out Elijin's name in alarm, but Elijin stood his ground. The outcome of a fight isn't decided by strength alone. Kaido and Canaria watched in stunned silence, sensing he had a final strategy. Canaria recognized the technique. His ultimate move, Holy Sword Style, Celestial Grace Slash. It combines his swordsmanship, superhuman strength, and enhanced physical abilities. The powerful strike landed, but only managed to slice off the tip of Zorga's horn. The Demon King smirked, unfazed. Kaido and his companions looked on in shock at the failed attack. With contemptuous ease, Zorga countered Elijin's lunge, swatting him away with a powerful blow that sent the prince flying across the chamber. Elijin landed hard, wounded and clutching his side. His power, it's on a completely different level than at Arian. Kaido rushed forward to help, but Elijin shouted forcefully, "Stay back! Getting any closer means being killed by my own attack." Zorga declared, "My original plan to slowly torture you has changed." He prepared a new technique. "I'll burn you to ash." Unorthodox sword style. Acknowledging the immense risk, Elijin decided he had no choice. He unleashed a final desperate attack, Phantom Holy Annihilation. The blast seemed to consume Elijin himself. He collapsed on the floor. Kaido and Canaria looked on in shock as Elijin uttered a single word, "Save." The Demon King laughed, mocking the hero for turning himself to ash. But Kaido was stunned. Did I really hear him say, "Save"? Suddenly, Elijin reappeared, not as one, but as a multitude of figures, swarming the Demon King and attacking from all sides. Kaido and Canaria were speechless, but Kaido quickly realized it wasn't multiplication. Elijin was moving at an impossible speed, leaving afterimages because he was using his save ability to rewind time over and over again, relentlessly pressing his assault. Kaido contemplated his own save and reset, and the version used by Black Arya. Elijin's power was a fundamentally different application of the skill. He watched in awe as the fourth war between the hero and the Demon King continued. With a final, decisive thrust, Elijin drove his sword through Zorga's heart. The Demon King's body lay lifeless on the ground. Canaria and Kaido rushed to Elijin's side, expressions of relief flooding their faces. Elijin smiled confidently. "Did I make you worry?" Behind them, a large gate began to open. There were the companions of Elijin. They called out her name and asked about the Demon King. Elijin apologizes, saying that she went ahead and beat the Demon King before they could regroup. Kiska was thinking that, after watching Elijin defeat the Demon King using save, there was no doubt in my mind. He truly is the hero, which raises the question, just who really is Uchiha? It seems the mystery has only deepened, but have they really saved the world? Under a clear blue sky, the hero's party finally emerged from the dungeon onto the balcony of a grand estate. Elijin took a deep breath, savoring the surface air. The dwarf warrior immediately began clamoring for food, and the elf girl Meow's grumbling stomach seconded the motion. Elijin gently reminded them about post-mission reports just as a frantic butler came rushing toward them. The butler, Frat, wept openly as he greeted them. He had been worried sick since learning Elijin had entered the dungeon on a top-secret mission. Elijin calmly announced they had returned and safely defeated the Demon King. When Frat expressed his admiration, Elijin immediately deflected the praise toward a surprised Kiska. Without Kiska's guidance, Elijin explained, they would never have found their way through the dungeon. The Demon King had devoured every other monster and become a threat beyond anyone's control. Frat turned to thank Kiska, who became flustered and insisted he hadn't done much. The rest of the party disagreed, declaring Kiska the real MVP. Kiska admitted Elijin had dealt the final blow, but recalled the moment the party was scattered by a teleportation trap. He confessed he had been panicking then, sheepishly apologizing for not knowing the hidden circle was designed for exiles and would prevent a party from entering together. Elijin waved off his concern and suggested they head back to the village where people were waiting. When the party emerged, a large crowd of villagers had gathered. The people recognized Prince Elijin immediately, buzzing with awe that he had infiltrated the Katarov dungeon. Elijin raised his hand, presenting an ornate box to the crowd. He formally addressed the villagers, announcing that he, Elijin, first prince of the kingdom of Rastarna, had slain the Demon King. He opened the box to reveal the monster's severed head as proof, declaring that peace in their world was finally assured and calling for everyone to celebrate together. The villagers erupted in joyous cheers. Watching the celebration, Kiska felt a sense of gladness. He had felt caught up in something unbelievable since arriving in this era, but perhaps it wasn't so bad after all. His gaze drifted toward Canaria. She informed him that a grand victory parade would be held in the royal capital Lorna to celebrate the Demon King's defeat. They would head there tomorrow, and she advised him to rest and not drink too much. Kiska realized with shock that he was also expected to be in the parade. Canaria confirmed this, stating that of course he was expected to participate as a member of the hero's party. Internally, Kaido noted with pleasure that she had referred to him directly with proper respect. That evening, the entire party celebrated at a tavern. During the festivities, Frat reassured Kaido that Prince Elijin would uphold his promise to begin searching for someone named AIA once his post-battle duties were complete. Kaido felt a surge of hope. With a prince's vast network, he might finally be one step closer to finding them. The next day, the group prepared to depart for the capital in 2 carriages. Frat announced the travel arrangements. The first carriage would carry himself, Canaria, and the older man Nakan for a relaxing trip, which meant Kaido would be in the second carriage with the others. Now awkwardly greeted him as Big Bro, and Kaido reflected that things had been strange between them since their initial introductions. With the party split, the 2 carriages set off for the city of Larna. Inside their carriage, the horned warrior asked Kaido if he had cleared the Katarov dungeon before and how many people were with him. Kaido quietly admitted he had cleared it alone. The revelation left his new companion stunned, exclaiming that such a feat was insane. The horned warrior admitted that even as a diamond rank adventurer, the thought of soloing a dungeon sent chills down his spine. Kaido explained the circumstances, clarifying that while entering through the main gate allowed for retreat, he had been exiled through a hidden teleportation circle. That secret entrance had a strict rule. No one could leave until the dungeon was cleared. He had no choice but to push through to the end. Meow cheerfully interjected that with her around, a return circle wasn't even necessary because she possessed a return spell. Kaido was stunned by this revelation. He explained that after they defeated the Demon King who had devoured the original final boss and taken its place, they simply used the teleportation circle that appeared in the boss room to return to the village. The horned warrior playfully teased now, suggesting she just wanted some of the credit, which she flusteredly denied. The horned warrior sharing that he had also lost time in the dungeon after being chased by a headless horse. The warrior confirmed that despite the setback, Kaido still made it to the final boss room. The group group shared a moment of camaraderie over their shared experience. The warrior recounted how he and Nao had met up with Kaido early on and simply followed his lead, finding themselves at the final boss chamber before they even realized it. This prompted Kaido to reflect on Noxon, whom he had never spoken to directly. He wondered aloud if the quiet man possessed some kind of special, unrevealed skill that aided their progress. Their conversation was abruptly cut short as the carriage lurched to a violent halt. The sudden stop startled everyone inside, and Kaido urged the group to check outside. As he looked out, he was met with a shocking sight. A legend stood in a tense standoff with a heavily armored demon king wielding a sword. The convoy had been stopped, and a confrontation was imminent. Kaido stared in disbelief, recognizing the figure before them as the demon king he thought they had defeated. Legend stepped in front of him, telling him to stay back. In an instant, a gaping dark wound appeared in Legion's chest. With her last breath, she called out Kaido's name, repeating her warning for him to stay away. Horrified, Kaido screamed her name. But as he moved, a sharp dark blade violently impaled him through the chest from behind. Gasping in agony, a sudden realization dawned on Kaido. He recognized this moment, this weapon. This was how he had been killed before. The weapon was a sinister eye-adorned scythe. As Kaido collapsed, he recalled that he had been unable to see his killer's face in his final moments. He reflected that ever since he arrived in this world 100 years ago, this was his first death. He understood that if Elijin died, the future he knew would be irrevocably changed. But he resolved that it didn't matter how many times he had to die to prevent it. Walking through a stone corridor, Kiska tried to piece together the chaotic memories of his death. He recalled Elijin's fatal wound, the revival of the Demon King, and his own murder, all happening in rapid succession, leaving him to wonder who the killer was. He explained that at the scene, he had only seen Elijin and the Demon King. However, he knew for a fact that Elijin's carriage should have also contained Canaria, Noxon, and Frat, who were nowhere to be found. This led him to a chilling theory. An unknown assailant must have killed everyone in the first carriage, used their sacrifice to revive the Demon King, and then circled around behind his own carriage to ambush him. He remembered being stabbed from behind but expressed doubt about his own conclusion. He questioned if anyone could truly possess the power to accomplish such a feat, as it would mean instantly taking down formidable fighters like the Master Rank Elijin and the Diamond-ranked Canaria, an act he considered impossible. Continuing his analysis, Kiska reasoned that if the killer's goal was simply to slaughter the party, the weaker members like Gorgensen and Nia would have been the first targets. As he navigated the dungeon, he encountered a werewolf but decided he could not afford to waste time. Resolving to think while on the move, his thoughts drifted back to the moment he was killed in the previous timeline. Recalling the path he took just before the fatal blow, he remembered the instant of his death with sudden clarity. Just before he died, he caught a glimpse of the blade that impaled him. It had strange veins similar to the puppet sword, but its shape was slightly different. He wondered if it could have been one of the Parasite series weapons that Judith had mentioned. Concluding that the killer was a wielder of a Parasite series weapon, he knew he must devise a plan to face such a dangerous opponent. He heard sounds of fighting from the werewolf den and recalled that last time Canaria had been there. He decided his first step was to rendezvous with her as he did before. However, upon reaching the area, he was stunned to find Gorgensen battling the werewolves instead. He was shocked by this deviation from his memory, questioning why Gorgon was there when it was supposed to be Canaria. He wondered if his act of rewinding death had somehow changed the route. As Gorgensen swiftly dispatched the last of the werewolves, he turned to Kiska and suddenly, Gorgensen lunged forward with a roar, swinging his massive axe directly at Kiska, who could only cry out his name in shock. But Kiska instinctively dodged. The axe cleaved through a werewolf that had been sneaking up behind him. Gorgensen smirked, noting that Kiska still had some life left in him. Kiska protested that the move was dangerous, but Gorgensen dismissed his concern, questioning why someone who had cleared the dungeon couldn't dodge a slow attack from him. He added that meeting Kiska here worked out perfectly for his own plans. Gorgensen asked which way they should go. Drawing on his memories, Kiska confidently pointed to the right and offered to lead the way, stating it was his job as the guide. As they walked, Kiska apologized for the party getting split up, a fact he claimed he was unaware of. Gorgensen was surprised by this, but his shock deepened when Kiska casually revealed that he knew the way because he had cleared this dungeon by himself before. As they walked, Gorgensen expressed his admiration for Kiska's strength, noting he could be a full-fledged party member. Kiska laughed it off, internally reflecting reflecting on the difficult death loops he endured to gain this knowledge. He confidently pointed ahead, announcing they had reached the golem's boss room and that he thought Aligin might be there. Gorgenson's expression turned serious, remarking on how much Kiska seemed to know and directly asking him if he already knew the future. The question caught Kiska completely off guard. While stammering a denial, Kiska was struck by a sudden vivid flashback. He remembered the moment he was killed in a past life and had a horrifying realization. The person standing behind him then, the one who killed him, was Gorgenson. They arrived at a large shaking door, indicating a battle was raging inside. Still processing his traumatic memory, Kiska confirmed this was the location, but Gorgenson noted the door wouldn't budge. Gorgenson explained that the door was sealed and wouldn't open until the battle inside concluded. As the sounds of fighting suddenly stopped, Kiska internally grappled with this new knowledge about Gorgenson, deciding it was best to remain cautious. Kiska and Gorgenson were startled by the sudden arrival of two figures. Gorgenson joyfully recognized them. Internally, Kiska was stunned. Seeing Canaria alive and well confirmed his suspicion. The future had changed once again. Aligin cheerfully greeted them, glad they made it safely. Despite Aligin's friendly demeanor, Kiska was gripped by a terrible memory from a previous timeline. She was going to die tomorrow. He felt a wave of despair, wondering what he could possibly do to save her as she asked him to guide the way. Putting his worries aside for the moment, the group proceeded with their mission. The dungeon's progress went smoothly, culminating in the successful subjugation of Demon King without any problems. Time passed, and the day for their departure to Larna finally arrived. As the party prepared to leave in two carriages, Aligin commented that it should be a comfortable trip. Stealing his resolve, Kiska called out to her, determined to find a way to save her life. Determined to prevent her death, Kiska directly asked Aligin if he could ride with her, boldly declaring that he would rewrite her destiny himself. While Aligin seemed to focus on the simple request to travel together and agreed enthusiastically, Gorgenson began organizing the rest of the party. He announced they would take Frat and, to her own surprise, Meow was also selected for the team. Two ornate carriages drawn by pairs of white horses made their way along a dusty country road. Inside one of the carriages, Kiska sat with a tense expression, sweat beading on his brow. He reflected grimly that this time he was traveling with a different group of companions than before. He sat across from Aligin and Meow, his gaze distant. He noted that so far nothing unusual had occurred, but a deep-seated anxiety prevented him from letting his guard down. His mind was consumed by a horrific memory, the image of Aligin with a fatal gaping wound in her chest. He hardened his resolve, determined to discover what truly happened in the carriage that day and change the outcome. Aligin, her tone reassuring. She revealed that the ruler of Rastarna was her father, King Vian Rastana, whom she described as a kind and gentle man. She assured Kiska that someone who contributed so much to defeating the Demon King would be warmly welcomed by everyone. Her words seemed to soothe his frayed nerves. A genuine smile touched his lips as he said that hearing her say so put him at ease. He reflected that, of course, Aligin had no way of knowing what truly happened on the last journey. Observing the cheerful atmosphere now that the Demon King was defeated, he resolved to simply play along to avoid suspicion. His thoughts were interrupted when Aligin called his name. She turned to him, asking if he had ever been to Larna before, and if he had truly lived in Katar village his entire life. Kiska confirmed that he had for the most part. He elaborated, explaining that although he was born a farmer, he would sometimes travel to nearby towns as a peddler. The term seemed to catch Aligin's attention. He added with a hint of self-deprecation that he felt he wasn't someone who should be speaking on equal footing with heroes such as them. His comment was met with a thoughtful gaze from Aligin, who remarked that a farmer clearing the Katarov dungeon was an unbelievable achievement in its own right. She continued, reminding him that Canaria was from a commoner background and Gorgon was once a rogue mercenary. More importantly, she said she saw what he was capable of during the fight to subjugate the Demon King. With a warm, reassuring smile, she told him that he was loyal, dependable, and someone who could be truly trusted, asking if that wasn't more than enough. Her sentiment was clearly shared by Frat and Meow, who smiled in agreement. Kiska was genuinely moved as he turned to look out the carriage window. His resolve hardened with the knowledge that someday she would be the one leading the kingdom. And that was precisely why he must change her fate. He gazed out at the passing trees, his mind fixed on their destination. They were drawing near the forest area, the very place where the incident had occurred before. Sensing his tension, Elijin told him that if they passed through this area without incident, he should feel free to rely on her and the rest of the party from now on should he ever find himself in trouble. Her offer caught him off guard, and he stammered out his thanks. With a confident wink, Elijin promised to do everything in her power to help him find his girlfriend as quickly as possible. The assumption left him speechless, his mind blanking on the word girlfriend. Beside him, now stared with wide, curious eyes. As their carriage continued through the woods, he hastily tried to clarify, stammering that AIA was not his girlfriend. From within the carriage, Elijin's voice expressed surprise, questioning why he would search so desperately for someone who wasn't his romantic partner. He struggled to find the right words, admitting that when it came to him and AIA, too much had happened. He confessed that there wasn't a perfect word for it. He didn't even know how to describe their relationship as images of both her gentle and her terrifying forms flashed through his mind. He elaborated with a strange smile, explaining that they weren't family, nor were they lovers. It was a connection that was hard to put into words, but he knew with certainty that if he had never met AIA, he would never have made it to where he was now. Listening intently, Elijin grasped the depth of his feelings. She understood now, AIA was someone incredibly precious to him. Kiska confirmed this, his expression firming as he declared that he came to this era for the sole purpose of saving her. He turned his gaze back to the window, his thoughts drifting. He came here to save AIA, and now he found himself trying to save the hero of this era, Elijin. A question formed in his mind. Was it his fate to save heroes? The carriage rumbled onward, leaving the forest behind as it crossed a sturdy stone bridge, steadily approaching the town visible in the distance. He looked up from his thoughts as the carriage came to a stop. Elijin announced their arrival in Larna, a statement Frat quickly affirmed, noting they were almost at their destination. Kiska's eyes widened in realization. Stepping out of the carriage, the party stood before the towering stone walls and massive wooden gates of the city. Beyond the gates lay their destination, the capital city of Larna, the heart of the kingdom of Restarna, a sprawling metropolis of countless buildings and bustling streets. The sheer scale of the capital left Kiska stunned. He could only stare, wide-eyed and sweating slightly, muttering to himself about its immense size. His awe was interrupted when Elijin pointed out that the rest of their companions had also arrived. Gorgon and the others approached, looking relieved to have finally reached the city. As the full party assembled, Frat watched them all with a discerning eye. For Elijin's sake, he knew he couldn't lower his guard. He reasoned, however, that the small, childlike Meow and the similarly built AIA were likely innocent. A crowd of citizens had gathered, cheering enthusiastically for the return of Elijin and Canaria. Walking amidst the adoring public, Kiska remarked on Elijin's incredible popularity. She let out a weary sigh, acknowledging that while she wanted to rest after the long journey, her first duty was to report to her father. She and her companions knelt in the grand throne room of Larna. Before them, seated on a raised dais, was the king, flanked by his royal advisors, prepared to receive their report. Lifting her gaze to meet the monarchs, she formally announced her return to his majesty. The ruler, King Vian Rastana, smiled warmly, informing her that he had already received her report and commended her for a job well done. Elijin expressed her gratitude in return. She then directed the king's attention to a large ornate box that materialized before the throne, urging him to take a look. The severed head of a horned demonic figure, its face frozen in a silent snarl. A wave of shock rippled through the court. The king identified the trophy as the head of the Demon King, marveling that it was taken not from a battlefield, but from within the infamous high-difficulty Katarov dungeon. His gaze returned to the adventurers, acknowledging the immense difficulty of their mission. Elijin concurred but clarified that their success was due to an exceptional individual who lent them his strength. She placed a hand on Kiska's shoulder, declaring to the entire court that it was his power that enabled them to defeat the Demon King without incident. Flustered by the sudden attention, Kiska internally lamented his awkwardness in such situations. The king's focus shifted entirely to the young man, addressing him by name and offering his personal thanks. A nervous Kiska deflected the praise, insisting he only did what he was capable of. Pleased by this modesty, the king offered to grant him a reward, asking if there was anything he desired. Startled, Kiska stammered for a moment before revealing that he was searching for someone, a matter he had already discussed with Elijin. He initially informed the king that he didn't have any particular reward in mind. King Vian listened, a thoughtful expression on his face as Elijin smiled warmly at Kiska's side. His mind, however, was fixed on his true objectives, preventing Elijin's death and stopping the Demon King's revival. He inwardly considered what he could possibly ask for that would help achieve those goals. He then hesitated before the throne, admitting that his request might not truly qualify as a reward. Finding his resolve, he stood before the open box containing the Demon King's head and declared to the king that he did, in fact, have a suggestion. The king's interest was piqued. He leaned forward, repeating the word, "A suggestion, you say?" As the view pulled back to show the spires of the royal castle. Later, a celebratory banquet was held. Kiska sat among the heroes, stating that there was one thing he had been wondering about. His thoughts turned inward, focusing on the central mystery. He recalled the original timeline, questioning how the one who killed them was able to interfere with the Demon King's head when it should have been secured inside Elijin's item box. He connected this puzzle to the suggestion he had made earlier. It seemed impossible that someone could have simply taken the head from a carriage. The crucial question remained: how did their killer manage to slay Elijin and revive the Demon King? He had achieved his first objective, to isolate the Demon King's head. The ornate chest now rested upon a grand altar. He had successfully separated Elijin from the artifact, but the core questions still plagued his mind. Would Elijin still be killed? Would the Demon King still find a way to revive? As night fell over the city, his resolve hardened. He vowed that he would figure it out, that he would uncover the identity of the one who had killed them in the other timeline. He sat alone in his modest room, the weight of his mission settling upon him. He would put an end to this threat once and for all. The Demon King's head was now secured within the sacred walls of the Temple of Larna. Deep inside the temple, the chest rested upon its altar. A figure emerged from the shadows, their footsteps silent on the stone floor. Canary approached the altar with quiet purpose. She slipped an ornate silver ring onto her finger. Her face broke into a wide, ecstatic grin. At last, she exclaimed. The moment she had been waiting for had arrived. Nearby, Kiska watched as Canaria stared, her face a mask of stunned disbelief. Aya found herself face to face with Kiska. "What are you doing here, Canaria?" he asked, the question hanging in the air. In that moment, a terrible suspicion took root in his mind. Was she the culprit? She explained calmly that she was merely making her rounds, checking for any suspicious individuals who might try to misuse the Demon King's head. Kiska, feigning innocence, asked her to clarify what she meant by suspicious. He pressed the point, asking directly if she was referring to someone attempting to revive the Demon King. His question struck a nerve. She quickly masked her anger with a dismissive smile, questioning if such a person even existed. Kiska, sweating slightly, played along, claiming he wouldn't know. He continued, suggesting that even if someone tried to revive the Demon King, it was reassuring that the head was secure. With that, he declared his intention to press forward. His parting words, however, were a direct warning. Elijin wouldn't be killed. The statement shattered her composure, her eyes widening in pure shock. His friendly demeanor vanished, replaced by a hard, knowing gaze. He pointed out that she was present, implying she understood the situation better than anyone. Flustered and enraged, demanded to know what he was planning. He dropped all pretense. "So it was you," he said, admitting he never expected her to be the traitor. With a venomous smile, she retorted that she had always disliked him and demanded to know the extent of his knowledge. Kiska stood firm, declaring that unfortunately for her, he would not allow her to revive the Demon King or to kill Elijin. He stood his ground as Canaria declared it was too late. She raised her gauntlet hand, displaying a ring of chaos bestowed by her master. With this ring, she boasted she could tear open space and time to resurrect the Demon King. With a wild grin, she reached for the ornate chest containing the Demon King's head, proclaiming that this very moment would mark the first step of their ambition. Her hand hovered over the chest, but nothing happened. The ring remained inert. A flicker of confusion crossed her face. She pulled her hand back, muttering that it was strange. She threw open the lid of the chest. Kiska watched her, his expression calm and knowing. The chest was completely empty. From behind her, Kiska offered a disingenuous apology, admitting that he had hidden the head away. Canary whirled around, her face contorted with rage, demanding to know what he had done. Her suggestion to the king to display the Demon King's head publicly to announce the subjugation had felt off. Canary drew her sword, its point inches from his throat. She demanded he tell her where the head was, threatening that his life would end right there if he refused. Unfazed, Kiska's hand rested on the hilt of his own weapon. He drew his blade, which flared with a faint, powerful energy, and challenged her to try. Elijin scoffed at his foolishness, questioning if a mere platinum rank adventurer truly believed he could defeat a diamond rank like herself. Kiska simply smirked, held his glowing sword with renewed confidence, declaring that with acceleration, he could now match her in speed. She countered with a wild grin, arguing that even if their speeds were equal, it didn't change the fact that she still surpassed him in raw power. With that, she launched another ferocious attack. He met her blade, the impact jarring them both. Despite the clear power disparity, he roared that he would not lose. Annoyed, Elijin clicked her tongue and demanded to know the reason for his confidence. He began to explain. After 100 years in this world and witnessing countless battles, he had realized one thing. All warriors, no matter how powerful, fight to protect their own lives. But he was different. Having died more times than he could count, he had become someone who didn't hesitate to die. In other words, he declared with chilling certainty, he did not fear death. His opponent raised her own blade to parry, but the force of the impact shattered her weapon, sending shards flying as she cried out in surprise. She could only stammer in confusion at the sudden, overwhelming display of power. Ignoring her shock, he leveled the tip of his burning blade at her face. He demanded that Elijin answer him. He pressed his interrogation, his voice tight with accusation. He reminded her of her oath of loyalty to Elijin, questioning why she would betray that trust and attempt to resurrect the Demon King. Her initial surprise faded, replaced by a cool, knowing smile. She conceded that she didn't know how he uncovered her plan, but since he had come this far, she agreed to tell him everything. She began her confession, confirming that she did indeed swear loyalty to His Highness. With a blush dusting her cheeks, she revealed that her feelings ran much deeper than mere loyalty. She loved him. Her declaration stunned him. He stammered, unable to reconcile her professed love with her actions, demanding to know why she would then betray the one she loved. Elijin's face fell into shadow as she prepared to explain. She posed a chilling hypothetical question. She asked him to imagine hating someone more than anyone else in the world, a person who also happened to be a prince possessing immense status and power. What, she asked, would one do to guarantee that such a person is killed? The horrifying implication dawned on him. He realized with a jolt that she was talking about Elijin. Her gaze intensified, her voice low as she asked how one could possibly eliminate the greatest killing intent in the world. Clutching her head, she revealed her twisted logic. The only choice, she declared, was to love them. Her twisted logic left him reeling, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief as sweat dripped down his face. She continued with a chillingly serene smile, explaining that she had suppressed her killing intent toward Elijin by overriding it with love. He recoiled, internally branding her a terrifying woman. He pleaded with her to abandon these thoughts immediately, his voice filled with a desperate resolve to protect Elijin. His resolve hardened into a direct threat. If she still intended to revive the Demon King, to kill Elijin, then he would have no choice but to kill her. She met his threat with a burst of manic laughter, her eyes wide with amusement. "You'll kill me," she mocked, daring him to try if he thought he could. His amusement vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, shadowed expression. "I'm sorry," claiming it was for the sake of the world. And he lunged forward, his hand clamped down on his wrist. A burst of dark energy erupted from her grip. He cried out, stunned by the sudden assault and questioning why she was attacking him. As the energy coalesced, a sinister black sword materialized in her hand. It was the puppet sword. She confirmed his unspoken horror with a triumphant smirk. She was the one who possessed the puppet sword in this era. Her smirk widened as she explained her strategy. She had let him run loose for a while, but he had gotten carried away, forcing her to act so she could finally figure out who he truly was. She pressed her attack, a manic grin spreading across her face as the puppet sword clashed against Kiska's blade with overwhelming force. He stumbled back, gritting his teeth as he realized the dire situation. Against the puppet sword, his own blazing sword put him at a significant disadvantage. He knew all too well that even in its initial state, the weapon supported its user's movements and provided statistical bonuses to both attack and defense, raising overall combat ability. Parrying another blow, he understood it was a hopeless struggle. At this rate, he would lose, declaring that as a former user, he knew the puppet sword better than anyone. Seeing no other option, he decided to retreat for now, turning to flee toward a large set of doors. Canaria shouted for him to wait. Before he could reach the exit, a massive figure blocked his path. A heavy blow struck him from behind, sending him sprawling. He looked up in shock, recognizing the dwarf warrior Gorgon. The warrior scoffed at him, calling him pathetic for being hit by such a slow attack. Kiska could only groan in pain. He turned to Canaria, apologizing for his late arrival. She calmly told him to wait. She instructed Gorgon not to kill Kiska yet. The dwarf warrior was confused, pointing out that Kiska was already near death, but Canaria explained that he was the one who had hidden the Demon King's head. She looked down at Kiska's unconscious form, noting he was on the verge of death and realizing it was too late to interrogate him. Canaria decided they would simply eliminate Elijin first before reviving the Demon King. Hey homies, I hope you enjoy this massive recap video. The next chapter will drop on March 7th, 2026, so if you want me to cover all the upcoming chapters of this manga, please hit that sub and like button. It means the world to me. Until then, see you in these masterpieces. Peace.